Chapter 1189. 10,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals. Fut. After a brief silence, Saber Mountain Venerable burst into laughter. Ningyu, can't you have some basis for your words? Stop with the nonsense and call me Grandpa. I'm still waiting to hear it. Ignoring Blade Mountain Venerable One's roar, Ningyu moved toward Hishu and reached out his right hand to gently push him. Boom. The moment Ningyu's hand came in contact with Hishu's body, Hishu's head fell. The crisp sound of the head hitting the ground caused Saber Mountain Venerable's eyes to widen. Even the Dark Emperor and the rest had their eyes widened with disbelief. Dead. Hishu was actually killed by Ningyu with a single slash. His head was separated from his body. To be able to stand on the same spot for a few minutes after his head was chopped off, Ningyu's means were truly formidable. How did Ningyu do it? The first to speak was the Dark Emperor with doubt written on his face. Hishu is a pinnacle 8th grade sovereign. I initially thought that Ningyu would only be able to heavily injure Hishu, or even come into contact with him. Could it be that Ningyu is pretending to be weak? His cultivation has long reached the 9th grade sovereign realm. Pilguz's face was filled with shock as he looked at Ningyu. However, Pilguzi didn't say it out loud. In his view, since Ningyu didn't want to expose himself, then Ningyu must have his reasons. Thus, it wasn't appropriate for him to say anything. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Saber Mountain Venerable was the most shocked. Hishu was a pinnacle 8th grade sovereign. Furthermore, that wasn't the main point. The main point was that there was a reflective halo around Hishu's neck. No matter how he looked at it, the attack that Ningyu had executed earlier didn't reach the 9th grade sovereign realm. An attack with the strength of a pinnacle 8th grade sovereign couldn't break the reflective halo. How did Ningyu do it? This was the first time that Saber Mountain Venerable felt that the situation had gone out of his control, making him feel powerless. Nothing is impossible. Shrugging, Ningyu said, as long as you dare to think about it and put it into action, you will definitely succeed. I'm not like some people who don't even dare to think about it when they're already so old. They dream about unrealistic things all day long. You. Venerable Saber Mountain clenched his fists. He wanted to flare up, but he dared not do so due to Venerable Spiritual Void's presence. Saber Mountain Venerable, don't worry. It doesn't matter if Hishu dies, you can avenge him. At this moment, Venerable Great Desolation, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. As soon as Venerable Da Huang spoke, he changed the topic to the alchemy competition. Ningyu said in advance that as long as Hishu lets him slash once, he will compete with you in alchemy. You can bet your life against Ningyu in the alchemy competition. Yes. Saber Mountain Venerable raised his eyebrows and uttered coldly, Ningyu, you're qualified to compete with me in alchemy, so let's refine a grade 8 pill. Haven't you forgotten something? Ningyu waved his hand and said to Saber Mountain Venerable, we've already agreed that if I kill Hishu, you'll have to call me Grandpa. Don't go too far. Saber Mountain Venerable released his aura and said coldly, I'm going too far. If you don't keep your word, then what's the difference between you and a salted fish? Ningyu revealed a terrified expression and said, Venerable Saber Mountain Venerable, of the 2 peak grade 8 sovereigns that you have, one has been killed, and the other has lost the ability to fight. At this time, as long as Venerable Spiritual Void stops you, Pilguzi and I will deal with Venerable Great Desolation. It won't take more than a few hours for Venerable Great Desolation to be killed. Once Venerable Great Desolation is killed, your end won't be far. Swish. Venerable Spiritual Void cooperated with Ningyu and released his aura at the right time. Damn it. Saber Mountain Venerable hated Hishu to the bone. Calling Ningyu Grandpa was something he couldn't do no matter what. Shameful, it was really shameful, utterly shameful. He was a high-ranking member of the Alchemy Union's headquarters, a mid-grade 9 sovereign and a peak grade 8 alchemist. If he called Ningyu Grandpa here, it wouldn't be long before the news spread to the Pill Creation continent. How would he be able to show his face in the Pill Creation continent in the future? Venerable Saber Mountain Venerable, what's troubling you? Ningyu knew that he couldn't push things too far. He pondered for a moment and said, how about this? I'm not an unreasonable person. As long as you give me a few million Emperor-grade origin crystals, I'll exempt you from calling me Grandpa. A few million Emperor-grade origin crystals? Saber Mountain Venerable almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. Emperor-grade origin crystals were extremely precious. Even if he added all his assets together, he wouldn't be able to get a few million. Ningyu, I'll give you 100,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals, and we'll let this matter rest. Saber Mountain Venerable solemnly said. Fut. Ningyu laughed out loud. Aren't you embarrassed to take out 100,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals? No matter what, you're a high-ranking member of the Alchemy Union's headquarters and a peak grade 8 alchemist. It won't be good if word gets out that you're worth 100,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals. 200,000. I can't give any more than that. Saber Mountain Venerable suppressed his anger. 2 million. Ningyu extended 2 fingers. Emperor-grade origin crystals. 1 million Emperor-grade origin crystals. Saber Mountain Venerable said fiercely, that's all I have. Who are you trying to fool? 5 million Emperor-grade origin crystals. Ningyu said. 2 million Emperor-grade origin crystals. Saber Mountain Venerable was on the verge of exploding. If Great Wilderness Venerable wasn't stopping him, he would have made his move. Great Wilderness Venerable was aggrieved too. He had to stop Saber Mountain Venerable so that he wouldn't act rashly. Otherwise, wouldn't he be dead if Great Wilderness Venerable stopped Saber Mountain Venerable? All right. Since you're pitiful, I'll give you 10 million Emperor-grade origin crystals. The exchange ratio between Emperor-grade and Emperor-grade origin crystals is a little special. It's 1 to 1,000, so you'll give me 10,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals. Ningyu waved his hand and said. In fact, Ningyu had already detected how many Emperor-grade origin crystals Saber Mountain Venerable had. 10,000. Saber Mountain Venerable only had 10,000 the Arch-grade origin crystals on him. The reason why he said so much at the beginning was to give Saber Mountain Venerable an illusion. Otherwise, Saber Mountain Venerable would definitely not agree to it if he asked for 10,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals. Alright, you win. As expected, Ningyu's strategy worked. Saber Mountain Venerable took out a storage bag and threw it at Ningyu. I'm afraid you won't be able to take it even if you want it. Crack, crack, crack. The storage pouch flew very quickly, and everywhere it passed, the space around it broke apart. Not good. Dan Guzi shouted, Ningyu, retreat. Great Wilderness Venerable, hurry up and help Ningyu. Dan Guzi's soul perception was very strong. He sensed a terrifying soul force fluctuation from the storage bag. In other words, Saber Mountain Venerable was planning to use a soul attack against Ningyu. Ningyu's soul force was only at the mid-7th grade, which was worlds apart from Saber Mountain Venerable. Chapter 1190. Unable to see through. Wait a little longer. Unlike Pil Guzi, Venerable Spiritual Void wasn't very worried. He frowned slightly. Ningyu isn't that easy to deal with. What are you waiting for? Ningyu definitely won't. It's impossible. Seeing that Venerable Spiritual Void had no intention of helping, Pil Guzi anxiously shouted. However, before he could finish speaking, his mouth opened slightly, and his face filled with shock. Not far away, Ningyu very naturally raised his right hand and firmly grabbed the storage bag. Many thanks, Venerable Saber Mountain. These 10,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals will be of great help to my cultivation in the future. Shaking the storage bag in his hand, Ningyu smiled faintly. Gulp. Ningyu's actions caused Venerable Saber Mountain to freeze in place. He couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Terrifying. Extremely terrifying. No one understood the power of this soul attack better than him. In his opinion, even Venerable Spiritual Void wouldn't dare say he could block it with 100% certainty. Even if he took 10,000 steps back, even if Venerable Spiritual Void was willing to help Ningyu, Ningyu would still be heavily injured. But the current situation left Venerable Saber Mountain dumbfounded to the extreme. Venerable Saber Mountain. Seeing Venerable Saber Mountain's appearance, Ningyu hesitated. Are you alright? I'm fine. What could possibly happen to me? Venerable Saber Mountain's expression was very unsightly. Listen up. The pill we're going to refine is called the Sky Spirit Pill, a peak rank 8 pill. Hiss. When Venerable Saber Mountain said the word Sky Spirit Pill, Guzi directly sucked in a breath of cold air. The Sky Spirit Pill was a peak rank 8 pill. Amongst rank 8 pills, it could be ranked in the front. Although Guzi was a peak rank 8 alchemist, he didn't have much confidence in refining the Sky Spirit Pill. Saber Mountain Venerable, the refinement process of the Heaven Spirit Pill is very complicated. Even with your alchemy skills, it would take you 3 days and 3 nights to refine it. Why don't you change to another type of pill? His eyes turning, Dan Guzi said without batting an eyelid, the Heavenly Yuan pill is also a peak rank 8 medicinal pill. It's relatively fast to refine, requiring just a few hours. It's also convenient for you to compete with Ning Yu. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? Saber Mountain Venerable replied exaggeratedly, the primary heaven pill is a trash pill, so it's not as difficult to refine it as the recovery pill. I'm fine with it, but I'm afraid that Ning Yu will ruin his reputation by refining the primary heaven pill in public. Let's refine the Heaven Spirit Pill then. I've already prepared the herbs, this time, wait. Saber Mountain Venerable spoke very fast, and he could not stop chattering. Ning Yu knew that Saber Mountain Venerable was avoiding the point, so he waved his hand and said, I don't mind refining Tianyuan pills. Whoosh. Ning Yu's words made Saber Mountain Venerable lose all face. Saber Mountain Venerable suppressed the anger in his heart and said, I don't have the necessary herbs to refine the primary heaven pill on me. I do. Dan Guzi took out 2 storage pouches and threw one at Ning Yu and the other at Saber Mountain Venerable. Pa. Ning Yu and Saber Mountain Venerable caught the storage pouches at the same time. Ning Yu put the storage pouches aside and quietly looked at Saber Mountain Venerable. Pa. Saber Mountain Venerable symbolically sent his perception into the storage pouch. A moment later, he raised his right hand and suddenly threw the storage pouch on the ground. Saber Mountain Venerable first stomped on the pouch twice before saying, Dan Guzi, are you messing with me? There's something wrong with the herbs you gave me. In my opinion, it's better to refine the Heaven Spirit Pill. With that, Saber Mountain Venerable took out 2 storage pouches and threw one to Ning Yu. You. Seeing that his storage pouch was publicly stomped on by Saber Mountain Venerable, Dan Guzi was so angry that he wanted to attack. Don't be impatient. Ning Yu patted Dan Guzi's shoulder and said, it's just a Heaven Spirit Pill. It just so happens that I've refined it before. I believe it will form in less than 3 days. Looking at Ning Yu's confident eyes, Dan Guzi sighed softly and said, all right, I believe you. What's the use of believing me? Saber Mountain Venerable said disdainfully. Saber Mountain Venerable, you're a peak 8th grade alchemist. Aren't you ashamed to compete with Ning Yu in refining the Heaven Spirit Pill? Dan Guzi said angrily. I'm not ashamed. Saber Mountain Venerable looked like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. Senior Dan Guzi, I might need some time to refine the Heaven Spirit Pill. Here are some Shenyang pills. Give them to the Dark Emperor and the Sword of Evil so that they can recover to their peak state as soon as possible. Ignoring Saber Mountain Venerable, Ning Yu took out an storage pouch and handed it to Dan Guzi. There were a total of 8 Shenyang pills inside. It was enough for the Sword of Evil and the Dark Emperor to recover to their peak state. Ning Yu, those are my Shenyang pills. Saber Mountain Venerable's face was extremely cold. If you compete with me in refining pills, you will definitely lose. So all the Shenyang pills you have are mine. You can't give them to anyone else. Just because you say it's yours, doesn't that make me lose face? Shrugging, Ning Yu said, you can scram if you don't like it. What are you still staying here for? Or rather, you can just rob me and take all the Shenyang pills I have. There was no way Ning Yu was afraid of Saber Mountain Venerable. With Supremacy Spiritual Shu around, what could Saber Mountain Venerable do? With that said, Ning Yu's gaze shifted to Supremacy Spiritual Shu. My Shenyang pills. That single glance caused waves to surge in Ning Yu's heart. Are you sure you're not messing with me? Ning Yu rubbed his eyes and looked at Supremacy Spiritual Shu once more. It's over. After multiple confirmations, Ningyu finally determined that Supremacy Spiritual Shu wasn't at his peak state. In other words, there was a high chance that Supremacy Spiritual Shu was severely injured and had used a special method to disguise himself, preventing Saber Mountain Venerable from noticing anything. You've noticed? The slight change in Ningyu's expression caused Supremacy Spiritual Shu's heart to skip a beat. Other than himself, no one else knew that he was injured. Even Saber Mountain Venerable, a middle-grade 9 human sovereign, couldn't tell, let alone Ningyu. Shaking his head, Supremacy Spiritual Shu returned to normal. Ningyu, you're courting death. At the side, Saber Mountain Venerable couldn't take it anymore. He stomped on the ground and charged at Ningyu. Swoosh. However, there was a figure that was even faster than Saber Mountain Venerable. Supremacy Great Desolation. Supremacy Great Desolation was a step ahead of Saber Mountain Venerable as he stood in front of Ningyu. Don't be rash. Supremacy Great Desolation uttered the first half of his sentence while the second half was directed at Saber Mountain Venerable. Supremacy Spiritual Shu, Danguzi, it's not wise to make an enemy out of them now. Why don't we defeat Ningyu in pill refinement first? It won't be too late to make a move after we get our hands on the Shenyang pills. Swoosh. Upon hearing Supremacy Great Desolation's words, Saber Mountain Venerable immediately stopped. Actually, Saber Mountain Venerable was still rather fearful of Supremacy Spiritual Shu. The reason why he hadn't killed Ningyu and the others yet was because he wasn't absolutely confident in facing Supremacy Spiritual Shu. Chapter 1191. He Fei's Arrogance. Ningyu, stop wasting time. The Heavenly Spirit Pill is only a peak grade 8 pill. With your alchemy skills, I believe you will be able to form it in less than 3 days. Saber Mountain Venerable took a deep breath to calm himself down. Since you're begging me, let's begin. Twisting his neck, Ningyu threw the cauldron into the air. He took out a medicinal ingredient from his storage bag with his left hand and threw it into the cauldron. Ningyu placed his right hand on the bottom of the cauldron and released a steady stream of energy to heat the cauldron. Ningyu had been very worried when he first discovered that Sovereign Spiritual Shu was injured. But now, Ningyu was relieved. As long as Saber Mountain Venerable did not discover that Sovereign Spiritual Shu was injured, nothing would be a problem. In any case, Saber Mountain Venerable did not dare to act rashly. So what if I let you have a few minutes? The Heavenly Spirit Pill was very difficult to refine. Not only was the process complicated, but it also required a long time to form the pill. If one's soul perception did not meet the requirements, it would be impossible to refine the Heavenly Spirit Pill no matter how much time he had. This was what Saber Mountain Venerable was interested in. Ningyu only had a mid-grade 7 soul power. How could he refine the Heavenly Spirit Pill? Great Desolation, when I refine the pill later, pay close attention to Danguzi and prevent him from lending his soul power to Ningyu. Saber Mountain Venerable was not a rash person. He had made thorough preparations. Danguzi was a peak grade 8 alchemist just like him. His soul power was very strong. Although Danguzi might not be able to refine the Heavenly Spirit Pill himself, it was always good to be prepared. Understood. Just focus on refining the Heavenly Spirit Pill. Nodding, Great Desolation said, with me around, Danguzi will definitely not lend his soul power to Ningyu. Swish. After receiving Great Desolation's confirmation, Saber Mountain Venerable took out his cauldron and threw it into the air, starting the long process of refining the Heavenly Spirit Pill. The Heavenly Spirit Pill was recognized as the hardest pill to refine among all the grade 8 pills. Saber Mountain Venerable was prepared to fight a protracted battle. Without 2 or 3 days, it was almost impossible to refine the Heavenly Spirit Pill. Shosho. Seeing Saber Mountain Venerable and Ningyu starting to refine the Sky Spirit Pill, Danguzi moved over to the side of the Sword of Evil and the rest and distributed the Shenyang pills. Catcher. Receiving the Shenyang pill, the Sword of Evil, Xielan, and the rest tossed it into their mouths without hesitation and started chewing. When Ningyu first appeared, he gave the Sword of Evil and the others some Shenyang pills for them to consume. Now that everyone had obtained at least 1 Shenyang pill, their recovery speed was like a rocket. In just 10 minutes. Sword of Evil, Xielan. One was a peak 8th grade human supreme being, while the other was a middle 8th grade human supreme being. The two of them recovered very quickly and were the first to recover to their peak state. Boom Boom. As for the Dark Emperor, Talisman Marshal Venerable, Yun Mu, Dong He, and the rest, they also recovered to their peak state half an hour later. What the F***ck, seeing how the Dark Emperor and the rest recovered to their peak state so quickly, the Great Desolation Venerable couldn't help cursing. It was great to have Shenyang pills. In just a short period of time, they had already recovered to their peak state. In fact, the Black Dog's strength had even improved. What AF** King Dog? Drip. Drip. Time was ticking away. In the room, Ningyu and Saber Mountain Venerable were refining the Heavenly Spirit Pill at the same speed. Neither of them had the upper hand. Haha, Ningyu, I'm going to speed up now. Saber Mountain Venerable glanced at Ningyu while refining the Heavenly Spirit Pill. When he saw that Ningyu was progressing at the same speed as him, his face turned ugly. Saber Mountain Venerable adjusted his state quickly. In just a second, he grinned. Don't cry later. Whoosh. Saber Mountain Venerable was a man of his word. As soon as he finished his sentence, his movements doubled, and his refining speed skyrocketed. Idiot. Ningyu rolled his eyes and could not be bothered with Saber Mountain Venerable. In his previous life, Ningyu was a peak grade 9 elixir refinement master, so he was very familiar with pills like the Heavenly Spirit Pill. The most important part of refining the Heavenly Spirit Pill was the first few hours. In other words, it was the refinement process. There could not be the slightest mistake in the proportion of each herb. Even the slightest mistake could lead to the failure of the alchemy. And the better the process of refining the medicinal ingredients, the shorter the time needed for the pill to be formed. Saber Mountain Venerable would need at least a day to form the pill despite his fast refining speed. With Ningyu's steady progress, it would only take half a day or even a few hours for him to successfully form the pill. Ha ha ha, Ningyu, aren't you awesome? Now that you're refining the Heavenly Spirit Pill, aren't you showing your fox's tail? At this moment, He Fei, who was heavily injured, dragged his weak body and laughed. Saber Mountain Venerable has already completed 10%, but you haven't even completed 1%. You'd better hand over the Shenyang pill so that you won't embarrass yourself later on. Ningyu took a glance at He Fei before he fully focused on refining the pill. Ningyu had nothing to say to an idiot like He Fei, nor was there a need for him to say anything. Hey, you loser, why are you being so arrogant? Ningyu was fully focused on refining the pill, so it wasn't convenient for him to quarrel with He Fei. However, that didn't mean that the Dark Emperor wouldn't. Raising his brows, the Dark Emperor said, a peak grade 8 sovereign was injured by a 3rd grade human sovereign like Ningyu. If I were you, I would have fled with my tail between my legs. How would I be as shameless and arrogant as you? What the Dark Emperor said, along with his expression and actions, made He Fei furious. Crack. Clenching his fists, He Fei said coldly, damned dog, let's fight if you're so capable. Are you sure you want to fight me? What's there to fight about? The Dark Emperor was instantly interested. Although he was only a late 3rd grade human sovereign, he was one of the 5 absolute geniuses, just like Ningyu. As a late 3rd grade human sovereign, it wouldn't be much of a problem for him to fight against an ordinary late 8th grade human sovereign. Although He Fei was a peak grade 8 human sovereign, he was already heavily injured and his strength was greatly reduced. If the Dark Emperor couldn't even deal with He Fei in his current state, then he could go home and sell his sweet potatoes. Of course it's a life and death duel. He Fei said coldly. Don't be rash. The Great Desolation Sovereign immediately said, this is the crucial moment for Saber Mountain Venerable to refine the Heavenly Spirit Pill. You better not create trouble for him. I. He Fei's tongue seemed to be knotted as he mumbled for a long time without being able to say a complete sentence. What about me? Since you're so interested in fighting me, I don't think there's a need to choose. Let's have a life and death duel, a martial duel. Chapter 1192. Another 10,000. Fine. Let me see what you're capable of. Provoked by Dark Emperor, He Fei said coldly, let's fight outside. As an alchemist, He knew that he couldn't be disturbed while refining the Sky Spirit Pill. Thus, He decided to leave the room and fight with the Dark Emperor. This way, he could vent his hatred and not disturb Saber Mountain Venerable. "Let's go. Who's afraid of you?" Clicking his lips, the Dark Emperor took the lead and left the room. "Me." He snorted and followed the Dark Emperor out of the room. Whoosh. Seeing the Dark Emperor leave, the Sword of Evil, Talisman Marshal Venerable, and the others all left the room. Damn it. Supremacy Great Desolation was furious. He had to stay here to prevent Dan Guzzi and Supremacy Spirit Void from doing anything, but he also had to leave the room to watch over He. Should he stay or leave? It was a tough choice. Dan Guzzi, I don't think we should go to the deathmatch between He and that dog. There's nothing to see. Supremacy Great Desolation thought of a plan. Let's stay and watch the battle between Ningyu and Saber Mountain Venerable. Refining the Sky Spirit Pill is much more interesting than a deathmatch. Haha, I will naturally stay, but whether the Sword of Evil and the others will stay has nothing to do with me, said Dan Guzzi with a smile. Dan Guzzi, let's not beat around the bush. How can we make them stay? Supremacy Great Desolation knew that he couldn't fool Dan Guzzi. Swish. Just at this moment, the Dark Emperor flew in from outside. 10,000 Emperor Grade Origin Crystals. As long as you're willing to take out 10,000 Emperor Grade Origin Crystals, I'll make the Sword of Evil and the others stay, said the Dark Emperor solemnly. Fut. Supremacy Great Desolation couldn't help but laugh at the Dark Emperor's words. Putting aside the fact that he didn't have that many Emperor Grade Origin Crystals, even if he did, he wouldn't take them out. What are you laughing at? Even Ning, you can ask Saber Mountain Venerable for 10,000 Emperor Grade Origin Crystals. Am I inferior to Ningyu? Asked the Dark Emperor. Damn. Compared to Ningyu, the difference is too big. The Great Desolation Venerable said, I will definitely pay the price. 10,000 Royal Grade Essence Crystals. Let the Sword of Evil and the others stay. It's up to them whether they want to do it or not. With that, the Honorable Da Huang crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking like he had the Dark Emperor in his grasp. Idiot. The reason why the Dark Emperor entered the room was to extort some of the Arch-Grade Essence Crystals from Venerable Great Desolation. Who would have thought that the Great Wilderness Venerable would not fall for it? Helpless, the Dark Emperor could only leave the room after saying this. Rumble. The moment Dark Emperor left the room, he started to fight with He. Holy *T. Sensing that the Dark Emperor and He were fighting, Venerable Great Desolation's pupils constricted and he hurriedly released his perception. Venerable Great Desolation divided his perception into two parts. One part stayed in the room while the other left the room. Although the Great Wilderness Venerable's perception had left the room, he did not see anything. In other words, the Venerable of Great Wilderness's perceptive ability was blocked by a layer of white fog. Needless to say, it was definitely the Sword of Evil and the others causing mischief. Dan Guzzi, the two of you actually joined hands to deal with He. This is not fair. Venerable Great Desolation said angrily. Joined hands to deal with He? Why didn't I see it? Dan Guzzi looked left and right before shouting outside the room, Sword of Evil, did the two of you join hands to deal with He? No, He gained the upper hand in the battle with the Dark Emperor. The Sword of Evil replied. Oh, did you hear that? The Sword of Evil said that they didn't join hands to deal with He. Dan Guzzi shrugged. Along with Dan Guzzi's words, He's miserable cry sounded. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Venerable Great Desolation felt embarrassed as if he had been played by a monkey. After cursing 3 times, he said, I'll pay 10,000 Sovereign Grade Origin Crystals. In order to save He, Venerable Great Desolation took out a bag of holding and said, there are 10,000 Sovereign Grade Origin Crystals inside. Dan Guzzi, as long as you let the Sword of Evil and the others come back, these Origin Crystals will be yours. Wrong. Dan Guzzi shook his right index finger. It's not for me. It's for the Dark Emperor. Fine, fine, fine. In any case, let them in first. Otherwise, I won't give them to you. To the Dark Emperor, said Venerable Great Desolation. Wrong again. Dan Guzi shook his right index finger again. You throw the origin crystals over first. Only then will I let the sword of evil and the others return to the room. No. Venerable Great Desolation refused. Taking out 10,000 sovereign-grade origin crystals was already a great loss for him. If he didn't save He Fei, wouldn't he lose everything? Venerable Great Desolation, I don't wish to see He Fei die again. Otherwise, you should know the consequences. Venerable Saber Mountain's voice rang out in Venerable Great Desolation's mind. Rumble. Venerable Saber Mountain's words struck Venerable Great Desolation like 5 bolts of lightning. He was really unlucky today. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a dilemma. Who would have thought that he would encounter it here again? Karma goes round, and retribution comes. Here. Venerable Great Desolation gritted his teeth and threw the bag of holding to Dan Guzi. Pa. Dan Guzi checked the number of sovereign-grade origin crystals inside and said, Sword of Evil, what are you guys doing outside? He Fei isn't a match for the Dark Emperor anyway. Swish. Swish. Pil Guzi's words were very effective. The Sword of Evil, Xie Lan, and the others flew into the room. Crack. The white barrier blocking Venerable Great Desolation seemed to be struck by something and crumbled. Hiss. The moment the barrier collapsed, the Great Desolation Venerable gasped. Outside the room, there was no battle to the death. There was only a black dog standing upright, its tongue hanging out as it panted heavily. Where's He Fei? Venerable Great Desolation was puzzled. Did He Fei leave the imperial family and the Great Xia Kingdom as soon as he left the room? But thinking about it, Venerable Great Desolation felt that it wasn't possible. After all, He Fei was heavily injured and couldn't escape from the Dark Emperor's powerful attacks. Delicious, truly delicious. The Dark Emperor licked his lips and said, This is truly a delicacy. I can feel that my cultivation is about to break through to the peak of rank 3 human sovereign. Senior Dan Guzi, give me the sovereign-grade origin crystals. I want to break through immediately. Swoosh. The sovereign-grade origin crystals belonged to the Dark Emperor, so Dan Guzi naturally wouldn't keep them. He threw them all to the Dark Emperor. Crack, crack, crack. Catching the storage bag, the Dark Emperor took out a few Emperor-grade origin crystals and threw them all into his mouth. As the crisp sound rang out, the Dark Emperor's aura started to rise steadily. Gulp. Venerable Great Desolation stared at the Dark Emperor, not daring to look away. Chapter 1193. Breakthrough. Almost. 3 minutes later, the Dark Emperor's eyes opened. The Dark Emperor's aura was at peak late-stage third-rank sovereign and he was just 1 step away from it. However, it was precisely this step that caused the Dark Emperor a huge headache. He could clearly feel that it wasn't realistic to rely on the arch-grade essence crystals to advance anymore. The energy within them wasn't enough for him to advance. Shenyang pills. I need Shenyang pills. The Dark Emperor's eyes landed on Dan Guzi. Other than Ningyu, Dan Guzi had the highest chance of having Shenyang pills. Finding Dan Guzi was definitely the right choice. After hesitating for a moment, the Dark Emperor said, Senior Dan Guzi, do you have any more Shenyang pills? 3, no. 2, I only need 2 Shenyang pills. Dan Guzi's face darkened. So many the arch-grade essence crystals weren't enough for you and you still want Shenyang pills? If I had Shenyang pills, I would definitely give them to you. The problem was that I didn't have any Shenyang pills, so what could I give you? I gave all the Shenyang pills to Ningyu. If you need them, go find Ningyu. F***CK. I'm not asking you to go find them now. Halfway through his words, Pil Guzi's expression suddenly changed. Ningyu was refining the Sky Spirit Pill and couldn't be disturbed at a time like this. If the Dark Emperor went to disturb Ningyu now, he might cause Ningyu's core to explode. Swish. The Dark Emperor couldn't care less. This was his best chance to advance to peak third-rank sovereign. If he missed this opportunity, there wouldn't be another one. Moreover, the energy in his body was extremely dense and had reached a critical point. He had to use Shenyang pills to break through, otherwise, it would be much more dangerous than exploding his core. Explode. After devouring He Fei and a large number of the arch-grade essence crystals, The energy in his body had reached its limit. If he didn't replenish himself with shenyang pills in a short period of time, his body would definitely explode. Ha ha ha. Seeing the Dark Emperor charge towards Ningyu, the worried Great Desolation suddenly laughed maniacally. Damned dog, you asked for it. You asked for it. If the Dark Emperor didn't ask Ningyu for the shenyang pill, his body might explode. If he did, it would definitely interfere with Ningyu's refinement of the heavenly spirit pill. Regardless of the situation, it was very beneficial to Venerable Da Huang, which made him very excited. Damn it! Although Ningyu was fully focused on refining the sky spirit pill, he knew the Dark Emperor's condition better than anyone else. Cursing inwardly, Ningyu reached into his bosom, took out a storage bag, and threw it to the Dark Emperor. Whoosh! The speed of the storage bag was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before the Dark Emperor. Catcher! Catching the storage pouch firmly, the Dark Emperor swallowed it without saying a word. In the blink of an eye, the storage bag was completely devoured by the Dark Emperor. Rumble! The Dark Emperor's aura also rose rapidly in the minute after he devoured the storage bag. Bang! When the second minute arrived, the aura of the Dark Emperor soared into the sky. What? Pinnacle Grade 3 Human Sovereign. Sensing the terrifying aura emanating from the Dark Emperor, Venerable Da Huang's mouth opened wide and his expression changed. As expected of the purple-gold sky-devouring hound. His cultivation speed is shocking. Dan Guzi, Xielan, Venerable Talisman Marshal, and the rest were dumbfounded. They knew that the Dark Emperor could reach the Pinnacle Grade 3 Human Sovereign, but they didn't expect it to be so fast. I wonder if it's a good thing for the Dark Emperor to reach the Pinnacle Grade 3 Human Sovereign now. Venerable Spiritual Shu's reaction was different from the rest. He glanced at the unmoving Saber Mountain Venerable, and the worry on his face became even more obvious. Everything seemed to be progressing in a good direction. However, Saber Mountain Venerable knew better than anyone that he couldn't be too anxious. Otherwise, it would backfire. When the competition between Ningyu and Saber Mountain Venerable ends, I should remind Ningyu to let Saber Mountain Venerable go. Taking a deep breath, Venerable Spiritual Shu murmured. I've finally reached the Pinnacle Grade 3 Human Sovereign. On the other side, the Dark Emperor retracted his aura and was extremely excited. To be honest, before he met Ningyu, he never thought that he could reach the Sovereign Realm. After following Ningyu for so long, not only did he reach the Sovereign Realm, he even reached the Pinnacle Grade 3 Human Sovereign Realm. The Dark Emperor felt his body brimming with energy. If he were to face He Fei or He Shu again, he could easily kill them. Why don't I make use of this opportunity to reach the Pinnacle Grade 4 Human Sovereign Realm? The bolder one's heart was, the greater his cultivation would be. The bolder one would be stuffed to death, while the cowardly one would be starved to death. The Dark Emperor decided to go all out. He took out a few more Emperor-grade yuan crystals and started chewing them. Crack! After eating a few Emperor-grade yuan crystals, the Dark Emperor's aura began to slowly increase. Gulp! Seeing the Dark Emperor's actions, Dan Guzi and the rest gulped. He had just reached the Pinnacle Grade 3 Human Sovereign Realm, and now he wanted to reach the Pinnacle Grade 4 Human Sovereign Realm? Wasn't that too exaggerated? The Dark Emperor's advancement speed was already fast enough. If he were to reach the Pinnacle Grade 4 Human Sovereign Realm, everyone would probably spit out a mouthful of blood. We must stop this damned dog. Supremacy Great Desolation gritted his teeth in anger. Ningyu didn't seem to be affected, and the Dark Emperor was trying to reach the Pinnacle Grade 4 Human Sovereign Realm. Supremacy Great Desolation could sense that the Dark Emperor, who was at the Pinnacle Grade 3 Human Sovereign Realm, wasn't much weaker than him. If the Dark Emperor were to reach the Pinnacle Grade 5 Human Sovereign Realm, wouldn't he be able to easily contend against him? Thinking of this, Supremacy Great Desolation said in a deep voice, "Damned dog, it's not impossible for you to advance, but you have to advance outside, not here. What do you have to do with where I want to advance?" Since Supremacy Spiritual Shu was here, the Dark Emperor was fearless. Supremacy Great Desolation's face was as ugly as if he had eaten shit. This was too much. The Dark Emperor was clearly being too much. As the saying goes, even if you can't bear it, You have to bear it. I'll let you be smug for a while longer. I don't believe that you can advance to the pinnacle grade 4 human sovereign realm. Supremacy Great Desolation glared at the Dark Emperor and started thinking of countermeasures. Fart. Suddenly, Ningyu, who was focusing on refining elixirs, felt a sweetness in his throat as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The fresh blood splattered on the elixir furnace, dyeing it red. The sudden change stunned Supremacy Great Desolation before he burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, Ningyu, you've shot yourself in the foot. How dare you divert your attention to give the Shenyang pill to that damned dog when you're refining elixirs? If you're not dead, who's dead? If you know what's good for you, give up on refining elixirs as soon as possible. That's the only way to save your life. Otherwise, given the strength of your soul force, your elixir will explode soon. Although Supremacy Great Desolation wasn't an alchemist, he was well aware of Ningyu's current state. Exploding elixirs was a small matter, but being killed by the shockwave from the explosion was the real news. Don't try to scare me. Chapter 1194. Fart. 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 As soon as the Dark Emperor finished speaking, Ningyu spat out another 2 mouthfuls of fresh blood. Ningyu's face turned extremely pale and his body started to sway. As Ningyu swayed, the cauldron in his hand also started to shake violently and looked like it was going to fall to the ground. Ha ha ha. Supremacy Great Desolation wanted to mock the Dark Emperor. However, when he saw Ningyu's condition, he couldn't help but laugh maniacally. Ningyu's condition was really not good. Without external help, Ningyu might not die, but it was only a matter of time before his elixir exploded. Supremacy Spiritual Void, Danguzi, you can't step in to help Ningyu. Supremacy Great Desolation rolled his eyes and said in a clear voice, the competition between Ningyu and Saber Mountain Supremacy has to be fair. No one can interfere. Don't worry, they won't interfere. Before Supremacy Spiritual Void and the others could say anything, Ningyu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said indifferently, because I'll be able to form my elixir in a few hours. Supremacy Great Desolation was stunned when he heard Ningyu's words. Then, he started laughing maniacally. After laughing maniacally, Supremacy Great Desolation said in disdain, you might be mistaken about the difference between a heavenly spirit pill and an ordinary grade 8 elixir. Among grade 8 elixirs, the heavenly spirit pill is one of the most difficult to refine. Even Saber Mountain Supremacy wouldn't dare to say that he could refine it in a few hours. Who do you think you are? How dare you spout such nonsense? Idiot. Ningyu rolled his eyes and left these 2 words. Then, he didn't say anything else. The mouthful of blood was purposely spat out by Ningyu. According to the reincarnation pill Dao, medicinal ingredients that were stained with blood could greatly reduce the time needed to refine the heavenly spirit pill. Therefore, Ningyu did as he was told. Originally, Ningyu needed a day or 2 to refine the heavenly spirit pill. But now, he only needed a few hours at most to be able to refine the heavenly spirit pill. This span of time was extremely long. Damn it. I want to see just how you refine the heavenly spirit pill. Venerable Great Desolation clenched his fists and his face was filled with viciousness. To Venerable Great Wilderness, victory would only be achieved if Saber Mountain Venerable managed to refine the heavenly spirit elixir before Ningyu and won the Shenyang pills from Ningyu. Everything else was a failure. Drip. Drip. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours passed. Bang. Bang. Several muffled sounds were suddenly heard coming from the furnace in front of Saber Mountain Venerable. It's about to form? Venerable Great Desolation asked in confusion as he fixed his gaze on Blade Mountain Venerable's furnace. If you don't speak, no one will think you're mute. Saber Mountain Venerable spoke faintly, and he sounded rather displeased. As a peak grade 8 elixir refinement master, Saber Mountain Venerable hated being disturbed during the process of refining elixirs. Hefei's insistence on competing with the Dark Emperor had already caused him a lot of trouble and delayed the time he needed to form his elixir. Now that Venerable Great Wilderness was making irresponsible remarks, he was extremely displeased. Venerable Great Wilderness looked a little awkward. He had good intentions as he was hoping that Saber Mountain Venerable could form his elixir before Ningyu. However, it backfired and angered Saber Mountain Venerable. Feeling helpless, Venerable Great Wilderness could only choose to keep his mouth shut. Bang! 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 3 muffled sounds were heard from Ningyu's furnace right after Saber Mountain Venerable. Upon seeing that, Venerable Great Wilderness opened his mouth wide as though he wanted to say something. However, he hesitated. He had to learn to be smarter or he wouldn't even know how he died. This was a small episode. Neither Ningyu nor Saber Mountain Venerable managed to form their elixirs. Time passed by quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 3 hours had passed. Bang! Saber Mountain Venerable suddenly opened his eyes and slapped his furnace with his right hand. Instantly, a round elixir rushed out of the furnace. Ha ha ha. Venerable Great Wilderness couldn't help but laugh when he saw the elixir rushing out. Ningyu, Saber Mountain Venerable has formed his elixir. Hurry up and hand over your Shenyang pills. Ningyu, actually lost. Sigh, Saber Mountain Venerable is a peak grade 8 elixir master. It's reasonable for Ningyu to lose to him. No, it's not that simple. Dan Guzi stood on the spot and stared at the elixir in Saber Mountain Venerable's hand. Not that simple. Could it be that Saber Mountain Venerable didn't refine the Heaven Spirit Elixir but the Earth Spirit Elixir? Venerable Great Wilderness curled his lips and mocked. You're really smart. However, Saber Mountain Venerable didn't refine the Earth Spirit Elixir but the embryonic form of the Heaven Spirit Elixir. Dan Guzi came to a sudden realization and regained his composure. In summary, there are 2 steps to refining the Heaven Spirit Elixir. First, refine the embryonic form of the Heaven Spirit Elixir. Second, form the elixir. Saber Mountain Venerable only managed to refine the embryonic form of the Heaven Spirit Elixir. He's still worlds away from forming the elixir. This Venerable Great Wilderness was speechless. He wasn't an elixir master and wasn't too clear about the knack of refining the Heaven Spirit Elixir. All he knew was that the Heaven Spirit Elixir was a peak grade 8 elixir that was extremely difficult to refine. Even peak grade 8 elixir masters would find it hard to successfully refine it. Who would have thought that there would be such a thing? Luckily, I didn't go overboard with my words. Venerable Great Wilderness rejoiced. If he had angered Saber Mountain Venerable further, he could forget about getting his Shenyang pills. Bang! At this moment, Ningyu slapped his palm towards the cauldron. Swish! The lid flew up and a pill flew out of the cauldron. Because of Saber Mountain Venerable's mistake, Venerable Great Wilderness didn't say anything and simply revealed a look of disdain. What? The elixir was formed. Even though Venerable Great Wilderness didn't have much of a reaction, it didn't mean that Dan Guzi and the rest didn't react. Especially Dan Guzi, who jumped up in shock. Because in Ningyu's hand, there was a round pill lying flat on the table. The pill wasn't big, but it was very round and there was a thick white mist coming out of it. It looked very dreamy. What's there to be surprised about? It's just an embryonic form of the Heaven Spirit Elixir. Venerable Great Wilderness pursed his lips and said indifferently, Dan Guzi, don't make a fuss here. If you have time, you should rest early. It's also good. What? However, before Venerable Great Wilderness could finish his sentence, he was stunned on the spot. No matter how stupid Venerable Great Wilderness was, he could tell that the pill in Ningyu's hand was different from the one in Saber Mountain Venerable's hand. In other words, the Heaven Spirit Elixir that Ningyu refined was most likely not an embryonic form, but a real Heaven Spirit Elixir. Sigh, some people really live in dreams. Before Ningyu could say anything, the Dark Emperor sighed softly and said, Ningyu refined the real Heaven Spirit Elixir. You're the one who doesn't understand the Pill Dao. You're an idiot in the Pill Dao. How dare you criticize him? The Dark Emperor had learned from Dan Guzi that Ningyu had indeed refined the Heaven Spirit Elixir. Otherwise, why would he mock Venerable Great Wilderness like this? The Dark Emperor prided himself on being a rational person. Before mocking others, he had to have a target to mock. He couldn't just mock blindly. That wouldn't be good. Crack. On the side, Saber Mountain Venerable crushed an Emperor Grade Origin crystal in his hand with an interesting expression. Chapter 1195. Breakthrough. How can this be fake? The Dark Emperor rolled his eyes. Saber Mountain Venerable, I remember that you and Ningyu bet on the Soul Jade Pendant. Now that Ningyu refined the Sky Spirit Pill before you, can you hand over the Soul Jade Pendant now? Compete. Saber Mountain Venerable snorted. Bring the pill over for me to check. I, Saber Mountain Venerable, am a man of my word. As long as I can confirm that Ningyu refined the Sky Spirit Pill, I will immediately hand over the Soul Jade Pendant. Do you think Ningyu is an idiot? Or do you think we're all idiots? To the side, Pilguz's expression was very ugly. He coldly said, as a peak rank 8 alchemist, you should know better than anyone that your words are just to stall for time. Dan Guzi, you don't have the right to speak here. The Great Desolation Venerable felt that this was his chance to show off, so he took a step forward. If I don't have the right to speak, do you think you have the right to speak? Dan Guzi said, this is an exchange between alchemists. You'd better stay where you are. You. The Great Desolation Venerable's expression turned ugly after being looked down upon by Dan Guzi. All right, Ningyu, the Sky Spirit Pill has a special characteristic. It can allow a third-grade sovereign to advance by 2 levels unconditionally. With a thought, Saber Mountain Venerable said, you're an early grade 3 human supreme. As long as you can consume this heavenly spirit pill and successfully advance to a late grade 3 human supreme, I'll admit that you've refined a heavenly spirit pill. At this point, Blade Mountain Venerable 1 paused for a while before he continued. You will have to hand over all your Shenyang pills and Emperor grade origin crystals to me. Haha, you really have a good plan. Ningyu smiled and said. Ningyu understood the effects of the Sky Spirit Pill very well. There was a certain chance that it could allow a third-grade sovereign to advance by 2 levels. According to Ningyu's observation, this Sky Spirit Pill could only allow him to advance to intermediate third-grade sovereign. 2 levels. It was extremely difficult. What do you mean? Doing this is good for both of us. Saber Mountain Venerable asked, you've successfully advanced to a third-grade late-stage human venerable, so your abilities will increase by a lot too. Why not? All right, I promise you. After pondering for a moment, Ningyu nodded and said, I can't accept it. As soon as Ningyu finished speaking, Dan Guzi hurriedly said, although the Heavenly Spirit Pill can allow a third-rank alchemist to advance by 2 ranks, there's only a certain chance. In your current state, if you swallow the Heavenly Spirit Pill, you'll only have a 10% chance of advancing to the late third-rank human sovereign. Ningyu wasn't the only one who knew the effects of the Heavenly Spirit Pill. Dan Guzi also knew. If Ningyu was at his peak, he might even be able to advance to the third-grade late-stage human supreme. However, the current Ningyu would find it difficult to even advance to the third-grade middle-stage human sovereign realm, let alone the third-grade late-stage human sovereign realm. It's fine. I know what I'm doing. Ningyu knew that Dan Guzi was saying this for his own good. He waved his hand and said, take a few steps back. When I advance to the third-grade late-stage human sovereign realm, my aura might hurt you. Fart. Hearing Ningyu's arrogant words, the Great Desolation Venerable finally couldn't hold it in and laughed. Aren't you afraid of cutting your tongue with your big words? Even if you advance to the third-grade late-stage human sovereign realm, you still won't be able to hurt that old fox Dan Guzi. Saber Mountain Venerable, prepare the Soul Jade Pendant. Ningyu didn't care about the Great Desolation Venerable at all. He glanced at the Saber Mountain Venerable and threw the Heavenly Spirit Pill into his mouth. No one noticed that a Shenyang pill had quietly appeared in Ningyu's sleeve. Crack. The Shenyang pill shattered and the terrifying energy was absorbed into Ningyu's body. At the same time, the Heavenly Spirit Pill entered Ningyu's stomach and shattered with a loud bang. The violent energy pulsated within Ningyu's body. Suppress it. With a thought, Ningyu hurriedly revolved the spirit transformation technique and started to control the energy in his body. Huff. With every small circulation of energy, Ningyu slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Boom. With every large circulation, Ningyu's aura grew a little stronger. He really might advance to the third-grade late-stage human sovereign realm. Seeing Ningyu's aura grow stronger and reach the third-grade early-stage human sovereign realm in a short period of time, Reverend Spiritual Shu murmured. As time passed, the restless black gas within Reverend Spiritual Shu's body was also constantly attacking the seal. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before the black gas completely exploded. Once it broke through the seal, the consequences would be unimaginable. Dan Guzi, could it be that Ningyu can really advance to the third-grade late-stage human sovereign realm? The Dark Emperor asked hesitantly when he felt the aura erupting from Ningyu's body. It's hard to say. But from the looks of it, Ningyu's advancement to the third-grade mid-stage human sovereign realm is already a done deal, Dan Guzi said solemnly. Rumble. At this moment, a terrifying aura emanated from Ningyu's body. Third-grade mid-stage human sovereign realm. At this moment, Ningyu advanced from the third-grade early-stage human sovereign realm to the third-grade mid-stage human sovereign realm. After advancing to the third-grade mid-stage human sovereign realm, the speed at which Ningyu's aura was rising slowed down significantly. In fact, after a few minutes, it even seemed like it was going to stop. Ningyu, looks like you're not refining the heavenly spirit pill. Advancing to the third-grade mid-stage human sovereign realm is already your limit. Saber Mountain Venerable crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at Ningyu with interest. If you know what's good for you, hand over the Shenyang pills as soon as possible. This way, it'll save everyone a lot of time. Swish. It seemed like Saber Mountain Venerable's words had an effect. Ningyu flipped his wrist and an interspatial bag appeared in his hand. There are over 50 Shenyang pills left in here. Do you want them? Ningyu asked indifferently as he waved the interspatial bag in his hand. No. The Dark Emperor shouted. Ningyu, the heavenly spirit pill in your body hasn't been refined yet. Why don't you hand them over to me? I'll devour them all at once. Thumpy. Saber Mountain Venerable snorted. Ningyu's chances of advancing to the third-grade late-stage human sovereign realm are slim. Do you want to waste everyone's time? Saber Mountain Venerable, there's no need to be angry. Ningyu was still as calm as ever. Before I hand the Shenyang pills to you, I'd like to take a look at your soul jade pendant. I'd like to see how much pure soul power there is in it. I'll let you take a look. With a thought, Saber Mountain Venerable controlled the soul jade pendant in midair, causing a terrifying soul power fluctuation to burst out. This soul power is only a tenth of the soul power in the soul jade pendant. Saber Mountain Venerable laughed sinisterly. Hee, hurry up and toss the Shenyang pills over. If there's a chance in the future, I'll introduce you to the headquarters of the Alchemy Union. You're wrong. With a flick of his wrist, Ningyu kept the interspatial bag into his storage ring. Chapter 1196. Rumble. Ningyu's aura soared once again. How is this possible? Saber Mountain Venerable's mouth widened as he sensed Ningyu's soaring aura. With Ningyu's current state, it was impossible for him to jump 2 ranks from initial third-grade human sovereign to advanced third-grade human sovereign after consuming the heavenly spirit pill. However, Ningyu's current state had completely exceeded Saber Mountain Venerable's expectations. Crack. Ningyu paid no attention to Saber Mountain Venerable's astonishment as the monarch-grade origin crystals in his storage ring continuously shattered. Dense origin chi flew out from the storage ring and entered his body through his skin. Ningyu's actions were done very stealthily, to the point that Saber Mountain Venerable failed to notice anything amiss. My heavenly spirit pill. Not only did Ningyu's actions astonish Saber Mountain Venerable, even the Dark Emperor and the rest were shocked. The Dark Emperor and the rest stared at Ningyu, not daring to relax. Boom. Ningyu did not disappoint the Dark Emperor and the rest. A brief moment later, a terrifying aura soared into the sky from Ningyu's body. Advanced third-grade human sovereign. In just a few minutes, Ningyu had undergone a transformation. He had advanced from intermediate third-grade human sovereign to advanced third-grade human sovereign. Even if Ningyu had consumed the heavenly spirit pill, it was still shocking. Phew. After advancing to advanced third-grade human sovereign, Ningyu let out a breath of turbid air with excitement on his face. Truth be told, Ningyu was quite excited to be able to advance to advanced third-grade human sovereign. With his current strength, he could basically kill an ordinary 8th-grade human sovereign in an instant. He could even easily defeat a pinnacle 8th grade human sovereign. Naturally, Ningyu still couldn't confront a 9th grade sovereign. It was so much so that he couldn't even withstand a single move. After all, there was an insurmountable gap between a 9th grade human sovereign and an 8th grade human sovereign. Shoo. Ningyu was not an indecisive person. He stomped his feet on the ground, and his body shot out in an instant. Not good. Saber Mountain Venerable One only came back to his senses when Ningyu flew past him, and he yelled furiously, "Return it to me. Return it to you? This is what I deserve. Why should I return it to you?" Shaking the soul jade pendant in his hand, Ningyu said doubtfully, "You lost to me twice, so this soul jade pendant naturally belongs to me." Ah! Saber Mountain Venerable roared crazily. "You took my soul jade pendant. I want you dead." Saber Mountain Venerable was on the verge of going mad. He roared as he charged at Ningyu, wanting to kill Ningyu. "Saber Mountain Venerable, you mustn't." Relatively speaking, the Great Wilderness Venerable knew his own limits. As the saying went, where there's life, there's hope. If Saber Mountain Venerable were to face Venerable Spiritual Shu in his current state, there was an 80% chance that he would die. Once Saber Mountain Venerable died, there would be no way out for him. Therefore, for the sake of his own life, Great Wilderness Venerable could only desperately stop Saber Mountain Venerable. If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose. This is your code of conduct. That was what Great Wilderness Venerable said on the surface, but he was actually saying something else. Where there's life, there's hope. Now that Ningyu has Venerable Spiritual Shu and Dan Guzi with him, we need to take our time to think about it. Take our time to think about it. As a 9th grade middle stage human sovereign, Saber Mountain Venerable was not an impulsive person. The reason why he was angry earlier was that Ningyu had taken away the soul jade pendant that he had been collecting for many years. After Great Wilderness Venerable's reminder, Saber Mountain Venerable immediately reacted. "Ningyu, revered Spirit Shu, the mountains will not change, and the rivers will continue to flow. Just you wait." Leaving behind those cold words, Saber Mountain Venerable tore through the void and disappeared. "The next time I come, I'll definitely bring Lu Wei away." Great Wilderness Venerable glared at Ningyu and left behind those words before disappearing into the void. "Chase, hurry up and chase." Seeing that Saber Mountain Venerable and Great Wilderness Venerable had left, the Dark Emperor said hurriedly, "Killing someone without killing him would cause endless trouble." Fart. However, just as the Dark Emperor finished his sentence, Venerable Spiritual Shu felt a sweetness in his throat. The black gas in his body erupted completely and he spat out a mouthful of black blood. What's going on? The Dark Emperor was a little dumbfounded. Wasn't Venerable Spiritual Shu a 9th grade middle stage human sovereign? Why did he spit blood? And it was black blood. The Dark Emperor knew very well what black blood meant. Venerable Spiritual Shu was injured. Given Venerable Spiritual Shu's strength, he actually allowed Ningyu to compete with Saber Mountain Venerable in elixir refinement. To be honest, the Dark Emperor was puzzled at the start. But now, he finally understood everything. How could an injured Venerable Spiritual Shu be a match for Saber Mountain Venerable? While he was shocked, the Dark Emperor was also glad that he did not make things difficult for Venerable Great Wilderness Venerable and Saber Mountain Venerable. Otherwise, if they were to fight, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Dan Guzi, do your best to protect me. I'm going to treat Venerable Spiritual Shu." Ningyu already knew that Venerable Lord Lingshu was injured, so he did not make a fuss. Instead, he said in a deep voice, "Blade Mountain Venerable and Great Wilderness Venerable aren't easy to deceive. I reckon that they'll be back in a few hours, so don't let anyone disturb me during this period." Gasp. Hearing Ningyu's words, Dan Guzi and the others sucked in a cold breath of air. With Venerable Spiritual Shu injured, their strength had decreased by several folds. If Venerable Saber Mountain Venerable were to return now, the consequences would be unimaginable. Ouyang Lun. Ignoring the shock of Dan Guzi and the rest, Ningyu said again, "I know that the Imperial family has a formation. Here are 10,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals. If Venerable Saber Mountain Venerable and the rest come, use these origin crystals to activate the formation. That way, We can hold them off for as long as we can. Swish. With that, Ningyu flicked his wrist and threw the storage bag to Ouyang Lun. Pa. Catching the storage bag firmly, Ouyang Lun nodded and hurriedly left to prepare for the activation of the formation. The imperial family's formation had not been activated for a long time. Before activating it, there were many things that needed to be prepared. Emperor-grade origin crystals alone were not enough. Dan Guzi, go help Ouyang Lun. You must ensure that the formation can operate smoothly. After thinking for a moment, Ningyu said to Dan Guzi. Understood. Dan Guzi knew the severity of the situation. He did not stay in the room for long and immediately left. Following closely behind him, the Dark Emperor, Venerable Talisman Marshal, the Sword of Evil, Xie Lan, Yun Mu, Dong He, and the others all left the room in unison. Once they were gone, Venerable Spiritual Shu dragged his exhausted body and said, Ningyu, before I die, I'll tell you a few things first. In truth, I come from the Supreme Nine Purities Temple and am good friends with your mother, Mu Yunshan. The reason I stayed in the Grand Xia Kingdom is because, Fut. As he spoke, Venerable Spiritual Shu felt a sweetness in his throat and spat out another mouthful of black blood. Healing is more important. Ningyu pressed down on Venerable Spiritual Shu's shoulder and sat down cross-legged. Chapter 1197. Full Power. As the Yuan Qi entered Sage Spiritual Shu's body, Ningyu also sent a wisp of perception into Sage Spiritual Shu's body. Hiss. Ningyu sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw what it was. The condition of Sage Spiritual Shu's body could only be described in one word: miserable. To use one word to describe it, it was very miserable. What kind of gas is this? How can it be so corrosive? Ningyu's expression became extremely grave. Since his rebirth, he had seen a lot of corrosive gases. Even the new corrosive gas developed by the corpse yin sect was far less corrosive than the black gas in Sage Spiritual Shu's body. Ningyu, don't waste your energy. You can't cure me. Sage Spiritual Shu's weak voice sounded. It was obvious that Sage Spiritual Shu knew his situation very well. He had fought with the black gas in his body for many years, but he still lost in the end. Disappointment, frustration, and all kinds of emotions appeared in Sage Spiritual Shu's heart, making him look a little dispirited. Sage Spiritual Shu, what kind of gas is in your body? Ningyu took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Find the right medicine. Only by knowing what gas was in Sage Spiritual Shu's body could he better find the right medicine and find a way to cure it. Otherwise, working blindly like this would only get half the result with twice the effort. It's the Emperor God Qi of Divine Emperor Palace. After thinking about it, Sage Spiritual Shu decided to tell Ningyu. Your mother was originally betrothed to the Emperor God Palace Master, but your father beat her to it, so the Emperor God Palace Master flew into a rage and sent experts to kill the three of you. Your mother lured away the experts from Emperor God Palace by herself, and I took you and your father to escape. At that time, a 9th-grade human supreme from Emperor God Palace was following me closely. I had no choice but to find a way to keep you and your father in the Magic Beast mountain range, and then fought with that expert. Although I killed that expert with all my strength, I was also seriously injured. That expert injected a strand of Emperor God Qi into my body. After listening to revered Spirit Shu's story, Ningyu's expression turned ugly. Originally, he thought that what happened to his mother had nothing to do with the Emperor Divine Palace. Who would have thought that there was such a secret? Ningyu, don't be so busy. The corrosive power of the Emperor Divine Qi is extremely strong. I may not have long to live. I see that your talent and aptitude are not bad. Take advantage of this last period of time. I will give you enlightenment. With that, Supremacy Lingshu abruptly turned around and placed both hands on Ningyu's head. Dense vital energy flowed through Supremacy Lingshu's palm and into Ningyu's mind. Rumble. At this moment, Ningyu felt a splitting pain in his head. The essence Qi in his sea of consciousness once again soared at an extremely terrifying speed. In just a few seconds, Ningyu had already touched the threshold of pinnacle 3rd-grade human sovereign. If this went on, it wouldn't take long for Ningyu to reach the pinnacle 3rd-grade sovereign realm. Senior Lingshu, stop. Although Ningyu knew that he would definitely be able to reach the pinnacle third-grade sovereign realm in a short period of time. But that would come at the expense of Supremacy Lingshu. Both he and his parents were indebted to Supremacy Lingshu. Stepping on his benefactor's corpse to increase his cultivation was something that Ningyu could not do. Don't struggle. You're only a pinnacle third-grade sovereign realm late stage and I'm a pinnacle ninth-grade sovereign realm mid-stage. Although I'm injured, I can still suppress you. You won't be able to move at all. Supremacy Lingshu was determined to give Ningyu enlightenment. With every passing second, the vital energy in Supremacy Lingshu's body weakened a little, while the vital energy in Ningyu's sea of consciousness increased a little. This situation left Ningyu helpless. Bang! About 10 minutes later, a muffled sound came from Ningyu's sea of consciousness. At this moment, Ningyu had advanced from pinnacle third-grade sovereign realm to pinnacle third-grade sovereign realm. The speed of his advancement was so fast that it made people click their tongues. Before the alchemy competition with Venerable Saber Mountain and the rest, Ningyu was only in pinnacle third-grade sovereign realm. How long had it been? He had actually advanced to pinnacle third-grade sovereign realm. If it was in the past, Ningyu would definitely not have believed it. But Ningyu had advanced to pinnacle third-grade sovereign realm, but Supremacy Lingshu's condition was extremely dangerous. Black blood spurted out and Supremacy Lingshu's palm on Ningyu's head began to loosen. Swoosh! This 1 second of loosening gave Ningyu the opportunity to leave. Soul power. Ningyu was not the kind of person to give up easily. He felt that Supremacy Lingshu could still be saved. Therefore, Ningyu directly sent his soul power into Supremacy Lingshu's body and began to slowly help Supremacy Lingshu expel the black gas. Fart. However, as soon as Ningyu's soul power came into contact with the black gas, it was as if it had encountered something terrifying and turned into nothingness. The corrosiveness is so strong. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu gathered all his soul power in one place, planning to expel the black gas from his heart first. Rustle. As it turned out, Ningyu's method worked. As time passed, the black gas around Supremacy Lingshu's heart was slowly forced out of his body. Fart. Ningyu's soul power was only at pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm. He had only helped Supremacy Lingshu expel a wisp of Emperor Divine aura, but he was already sweating profusely and spitting out a mouthful of blood. No, my soul power is too weak. Looking at the unconscious Supremacy Lingshu, Ningyu's face darkened. At this rate, even if he was paralyzed from exhaustion, he could only help Supremacy Lingshu expel a little bit of Emperor Divine aura. The only thing he could do now was to find a way to improve his soul power again. Screw it. With a determined look, Ningyu flicked his wrist and threw the soul jade pendant that he had received from Saber Mountain Venerable into his mouth. Crack. As soon as the jade pendant entered his mouth, Ningyu started chewing without a care in the world. Fart. After the jade pendant shattered, a terrifying soul power burst out and rampaged through Ningyu's body. Suppress it. Ningyu hurriedly released his pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm soul power and began to devour the rich soul power in the jade pendant. Fortunately, the soul power in the jade pendant was pure. Otherwise, Ningyu's risk this time was enough to turn him into ashes. Fart, fart, fart. After spitting out several mouthfuls of blood, Ningyu's tense nerves finally relaxed a little. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. Ningyu's soul power had advanced from pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm to pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm. Not enough. Continue devouring. The strength of a pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm soul power could not completely expel the Emperor Divine aura from Supremacy Lingshu's body, so Ningyu continued to devour the soul power. Bang! The pure soul power contained in the soul jade pendant was too strong. In just a minute, Ningyu's soul power had advanced from pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm from pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm. Again, glancing at Supremacy Lingshu, Ningyu devoured the pure soul power again. While Supremacy Lingshu could still hold on for a while, Ningyu needed to increase his soul power as soon as possible. Chapter 1198. Thousand Ghosts Soul Devouring Flag Ouyang Lun. How long has it been since your Imperial Great Array was activated? While Ningyu was doing his best to increase the strength of his soul force, in a certain secret room in the Imperial Palace. There were two martial artists in the secret room. One was Ouyang Lun, and the other was Dan Guzi. In front of them was a circular altar, surrounded by 4 huge stone pillars. However, the stone pillar was covered in a thick layer of dust and looked very shabby. Ouyang Lun didn't dare to tarry and obediently replied, "I don't know either." Dan Guzi's face darkened. "You're the controller of the Imperial family, yet you don't know when the last time the Imperial family's great array was activated." Dan Guzi's expression gradually turned cold. "Even now, you still dare to lie. It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Buzz. As a result, Dan Guzi released his aura, slightly suppressing Ouyang Lun. "Senior, I really don't know." Sensing Pil Guzi's terrifying aura, Ouyang Lun hastily said, "The Imperial family has no records of this grand formation." "Is that true?" asked Pil Guzi. "Absolutely." Ouyang Lun nodded. "Then even you don't know how powerful this formation is." Pil Guzi's expression was extremely ugly. They were facing the Saber Mountain Venerable and the Great Wilderness Venerable. 2 9th-grade human supremes, and one of them was a middle 9th-grade human supremes. Hoping for an unknown defensive formation to block it. It was no different from a joke. "How do we activate the formation?" Dan Guzi asked solemnly. "It's rumored that activating the formation requires a large amount of origin crystals. How about I throw an Emperor-grade origin crystal into the altar to take a look?" Ouyang Lun hesitated. "Sigh, now that things have come to this, we can only do this." Sighing, Dan Guzi said, "Hand over the 10,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals Ningyu gave you and then step back." Whoosh. Hearing this, Ouyang Lun felt as if he had been granted amnesty, and he immediately tossed the storage pouch to Pil Guzi. "Catcher." Pil Guzi directly took out a sovereign-grade origin crystal and crushed it, tossing it onto the altar. When an Emperor-grade essence crystal entered the altar, it was like a stone sinking into the sea, not stirring up any ripples. "How about throwing another one?" Ouyang Lun said cautiously. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After a moment's thought, Dan Guzi took out 3 more sovereign-grade origin crystals and tossed them into the altar. This time, Dan Guzi didn't crush it. Instead, he threw it into the altar. It was a pity. The altar remained the same. Damn it. Cursing inside, Pil Guzi took out 100 sovereign-grade origin crystals and tossed them onto the altar. Whoosh. 100 Emperor-grade origin crystals had obviously played a role. A terrifying beam of light shot out from the altar, instantly turning the altar transparent. "There's hope." Delighted, Dan Guzi decided to go all out. He took out 1,000 sovereign-grade origin crystals and threw them into the altar. Rumble. In an instant, another beam of light shot out from the altar and shone on one of the stone pillars. Instantly, the stone pillar became incomparably smooth. Heavens! A giant heavens character on the stone pillar gradually became clear. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With the same motion, Dan Guzi threw out another 3,000 sovereign-grade origin crystals. The other 3 stone pillars had 3 large characters on them. Earth. None. Extreme. Heaven and Earth Supreme Formation. Dan Guzi sucked in a cold breath of air when he saw the 4 characters on the 4 stone pillars. He had heard of the Heaven and Earth Supreme Formation. It was an extremely domineering formation, and its defensive power was domineering. However, it had a flaw. It required a large amount of energy, and it also needed a person to control it. No wonder the Imperial family has never activated this formation in all these years. So it's the Heaven and Earth Supreme Formation. Dan Guzi finally understood. A Heaven and Earth Supreme Formation like this couldn't be activated without a person as the eye of the formation. Ouyang Lun, go find the Dark Emperor and get the 10,000 sovereign-grade origin crystals from him. Taking a deep breath, Dan Guzi ordered. Yes. Ouyang Lun had wanted to leave this place for a long time. With Dan Guzi's approval, he quickly tore open the void and left. If I don't enter hell, who will? After Ouyang Lun left, Dan Guzi's voice grew weaker and weaker. Whoosh, whoosh, At the same time, in a certain forest outside the Grand Xia Kingdom, two martial artists descended in an instant. These two martial artists were none other than Venerable Great Desolation and Venerable Saber Mountain. Damn it! I must take revenge for this. Venerable Saber Mountain cursed in his heart. We must take revenge, but we need to think about it carefully. Venerable Great Desolation was very calm. With Venerable Spirit Shu and Dan Guzi here, we have no way of killing Ningyu. Not only will I kill Ningyu, but I will also kill Dan Guzi and Venerable Spirit Shu. Venerable Saber Mountain said coldly. Of course we must kill, but... Venerable Great Desolation paused and didn't continue. But what? Venerable Saber Mountain asked. But the price of killing them is a little high. It might be a little cruel. Venerable Great Desolation said. Oh, you have a way. Venerable Saber Mountain raised his brows. I wonder if Venerable Saber Mountain has heard of the 10,000 Ghosts soul-devouring flag. Venerable Great Desolation said. What? You actually have the 10,000 Ghosts soul-devouring flag? Venerable Saber Mountain instantly distanced himself from Venerable Great Desolation and scolded, You are only a 9th grade initial human supreme. It will be effortless for me to kill you. You are mistaken. Even if I have the 10,000 Ghost soul-devouring flag, I will not be your match. Venerable Great Desolation took out a red flag and said, This is the 10,000 Ghost soul-devouring flag. Every time we kill a Yuan Dan realm martial artist, this flag will trap their soul. I have collected it for dozens of years. Now, there are a total of 9,000 Yuan Dan realm martial artists' souls in the flag. As long as we kill another 100 Yuan Dan realm martial artists, the power of the 10,000 Ghost soul-devouring flag will increase to the peak. At that time, it will be effortless for us to kill Ningyu and Venerable Spirit Shu. You are too naive. There might not even be 1,000 Yuan Dan realm martial artists in the entire Great Xia Kingdom. Where are we going to find so many powerful martial artists? Venerable Saber Mountain snorted. Haha, you don't have to worry about this. Even though the Great Xia Kingdom doesn't have that many Yuan Dan realm martial artists, the Corpse Sect, Blood God Palace, Lanqing Kingdom, and other kingdoms have them. We will split up and each of us will have 500 Yuan Dan realm martial artist. Venerable Great Desolation smiled and took out a small 10,000 Ghost soul-devouring flag and threw it to Venerable Saber Mountain. Chapter 1199. Enhanced Version BAM. Inside the room where Ningyu and Supremacy Spiritual Shu were in the Imperial Palace of the Xia Kingdom. Ningyu's closed eyes snapped open as a muffled sound rang out in his sea of consciousness. Early stage 8th grade soul power. After a period of devouring and refining, Ningyu's soul power had finally advanced to early stage 8th grade. I can take this opportunity to raise my soul power to mid-stage 8th grade. There was a lot of pure soul power in the Soul Jade Pendant. Ningyu had only devoured 1/3 of it and his soul power had already risen from mid-stage 7th grade to early stage 8th grade. One could imagine that once the remaining 2/3 of pure soul power was completely devoured, his soul power would most likely reach mid-stage 8th grade. However, just as Ningyu was about to refine the remaining 2/3 of pure soul power, Supremacy Spiritual Shu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body, which was already weak, became even weaker now. Oh no! Sensing Supremacy Spiritual Shu's aura fluctuations, Ningyu did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly placed both hands on Supremacy Spiritual Shu's back. Early stage 8th grade soul power poured into Supremacy Spiritual Shu's body. When his soul power was only mid-stage 7th grade, even if Ningyu used all his strength, he could not help Supremacy Spiritual Shu completely expel the Emperor Qi from his body. Now that the strength of his soul force had risen to the early 8th grade, Ningyu was able to deal with the Emperor God Qi in Sage Ling Shu's body with ease. Wisps of Emperor Qi constantly poured out of Supremacy Spiritual Shu's body. As soon as the Emperor Qi came into contact with the air, it completely turned into nothingness. At this rate, I'll probably be able to expel all the Emperor Qi from Supremacy Spiritual Shu's body in a day. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu did not care about the consequences and focused on helping Supremacy Spiritual Shu expel the Emperor Qi. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye, 10 hours had passed. When the 11th hour arrived, Ningyu suddenly felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. Damn it, it's the enhanced version of Emperor Divine Qi. Cursing inwardly, Ningyu's expression was extremely ugly. After 10 hours of continuous expulsion, the Emperor God Qi in Lord Spiritual Shu's body had been almost completely expelled. As long as the last wisp of Emperor Divine energy was expelled, Lord Lingshu would be able to fully recover. Who would have thought that something would go wrong at the crucial moment? The last wisp of Emperor Divine aura was extremely corrosive. Even Ningyu's level 8 soul force couldn't do anything to it. Not only that, if it weren't for Ningyu's wits to retract the soul force from Sovereign Spiritual Shu's body, his soul force would have been completely corroded. Let's fight. Since he had decided to help Supremacy Lingshu expel the Emperor Divine aura, Ningyu would not go back on his word. With a thought, Ningyu brought out the remaining 2/3 of pure soul power in the jade pendant and sent it into Venerable Spirit Void's body. Whoosh, whoosh. With the help of so much pure soul power, Ningyu completely relaxed his mind and began to control his soul power to fight against the enhanced version of Emperor Divine aura. At first, the two sides were evenly matched. But as time went on, Ningyu gradually gained the upper hand. It was just that this upper hand was very hard to come by, and it came at the cost of consuming soul power. Every time the enhanced version of Emperor Divine aura was reduced, the remaining soul power in the jade pendant would be consumed. This state lasted for another 10 hours. During this time, Venerable Spirit Void spat out countless mouthfuls of blood, and even his face became very pale. Fart. Then, another mouthful of blood sprayed out. Venerable Spirit Void's eyes suddenly opened, and there was a hint of shock between his brows. I. He used a little of his perception to probe the condition of his body. When Venerable Spirit Void found that all the Emperor God aura in his body had been expelled, he even stuttered a little. Ningyu, how did you do it? Venerable Spirit Void's mouth opened wide in surprise. If someone had told Venerable Spirit Void before that the Emperor God aura in his body could be expelled, Venerable Spirit Void would definitely have called that person a fool. But now the truth was in front of him. Ningyu, a third-grade early human, no, it should be a third-grade peak human supreme, had actually completely expelled the Emperor God aura in his body. Moreover, Venerable Spirit Void knew better than anyone that in addition to the Emperor God aura in his body, there was also a strand of enhanced Emperor God aura. Even this could not stop Ningyu. One could imagine how terrifying Ningyu was. Senior Spirit Void, you don't have to worry about other things. What you need to do now is to recover to your peak state as soon as possible. Ningyu did not directly answer Venerable Spirit Void's question, but said in a low voice. Because I can feel that Venerable Great Wilderness and Venerable Blade Mountain will definitely come back after a period of time. At that time, we will all have to rely on you. At my peak, killing Venerable Blade Mountain would be as easy as chopping vegetables, Venerable Spirit Void snorted and said proudly. Sigh. Just as he finished speaking, Venerable Spirit Void sighed and said slowly, I'm no longer at my peak state. I will need at least 2 to 3 days to recover. 2 to 3 days? Ningyu furrowed his brows slightly. What if there are Shenyang pills? I can give you a lot of them. Shaking his head, Venerable Spirit Void said, although Shenyang pills can help with recovery, they can't save much time. What do you mean? Ningyu asked doubtfully. In other words, if you give me 1 Shenyang pill, or give me 3, or even 30 Shenyang pills, the difference isn't that big. I'll need 2 or 3 days to recover to my peak condition. Reverend Spiritual Shu said, my situation is a little special. It's different from others. Alright, I'll give you 3 Shenyang pills. Stay here and recover as soon as possible. After some thought, Ningyu took out 3 Shenyang pills and threw them to Venerable Spirit Void. Swish, swish, swish. After throwing the 3 Shenyang pills, Ningyu stomped on the ground and left the room instantly. Piak, piak. Receiving the 3 Shenyang pills, the doubt on Venerable Spirit Void's face became even more obvious. Just how did Ningyu manage to purge the Emperor God Qi from his body? Furthermore, It was purged so cleanly that even the strengthened version of the Emperor God Chi could be dealt with. Could it be that Ningyu had been pretending to be weak all along? Venerable Spirit Void did not know. But Supremacy Spirit Void was certain that Ningyu would definitely not harm him. After all, given his current condition, it would be a piece of cake for Ningyu to kill him. I hope I can recover as soon as possible. Creak. Once the door was closed, Venerable Spirit Void cleared his mind of all distracting thoughts and tossed a Shengyang pill into his mouth. Once the Shengyang pill entered his stomach, Venerable Spirit Void hurriedly channeled his mental cultivation to refine the Shengyang pill. Sure. At the same time, Ningyu had already torn through the void and arrived at the secret chamber where the Sword of Evil and Ouyang Lun were. Other than the Sword of Evil and Ouyang Lun, the Dark Emperor and Xielan were also present. Chapter 1200. Refining a puppet. Ningyu, you've come at just the right time. Come take a look at this formation. Seeing Ningyu walk in, Dan Guzi hastily said. What's going on? Asked Ningyu as he walked forward. This formation is called the Heaven and Earth New Infinity Formation. But I threw in 4,000 or 5,000 sovereign-grade origin crystals, and it still showed no signs of activating, explained Dan Guzi. I was just thinking about whether or not I should throw in another 5,000 sovereign-grade origin crystals. What? The Heaven and Earth New Infinity Formation. Ningyu's expression changed, and he quickened his pace to the side of the altar. He began to carefully examine it. After a long time, Ningyu took a deep breath, his expression grave. Looking at the 4 stone pillars and then back at Dan Guzi, Ningyu said, Dan Guzi, do you think you can activate the Heaven and Earth New Infinity Formation just by being the eye of the formation? To tell you the truth, you're far too naive. What do you mean? Asked Dan Guzi. What you understand of the Heaven and Earth New Infinity Formation is just the tip of the iceberg. Ningyu continued, the Heaven and Earth New Infinity Formation requires a great deal of energy to activate, and it also requires a person to be the eye of the formation. Correct. Dan Guzi nodded, looking suspiciously at Ningyu. You only know one thing, but not the other. Once the Heaven and Earth New Infinity Formation is activated, you, as the eye of the formation, will be instantly annihilated, said Ningyu. I know that. Dan Guzi's expression became resolute. In order to kill the Grand Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable, sacrificing me is worth it. Fool! Shouted Ningyu. It seems you didn't understand my meaning. I'm saying that once the Heaven and Earth New Infinity Formation is activated, you will immediately be annihilated. Your intentions are good, but you're using them in the wrong place. As he spoke, Ningyu found a pen and paper out of nowhere and wrote down dozens of items on it. Handing the paper to Dan Guzi, Ningyu said, give me 2 copies of everything on this. I have a use for them. This. Looking at the things on the paper, Dan Guzi hesitated. There are many things that even I have never heard of. Pa. Ningyu slapped his head and said, look at my memory. I'll write another one for you. There were many things on the paper. Ningyu had written them according to what he had written 20 years ago. After 20 years of evolution, many things had changed their names, so Ningyu had to write them all again. When do you want it? Dan Guzi said as he took the paper. The sooner, the better. Ningyu replied, at the latest, we must gather everything by tomorrow. Understood. Nodding, Dan Guzi waved his hands, tearing through the void and vanishing. Once Dan Guzi left, the Dark Emperor said, Ningyu, what did you have Dan Guzi look for? It's very mysterious. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Sword of Evil, stay behind. The rest of you, go stand guard outside. Other than Dan Guzi, don't let anyone in. Waving his hand, Ningyu said, in a moment of life and death, the Heaven and Earth Limitless Formation must be activated. If you want to go, then go. What's there to be so arrogant about? After rolling his eyes at Ningyu, the Dark Emperor left the secret chamber without looking back. As for Xielan and Ouyang Lun, they followed closely behind the Dark Emperor and disappeared. Soon, only the Sword of Evil and Ningyu were left in the room. Ning, the Sword of Evil, opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he didn't. I know what you want to ask. I can only tell you. You'll know when Dan Guzi returns. Ningyu directly sat down cross-legged and took out a shenyang pill, tossing it into his mouth. Crunch. The shenyang pill melted in his mouth and quickly entered Ningyu's body. Spirit transformation art. Ningyu didn't dare tarry. He immediately circulated the spirit transformation art and began to refine the shenyang pill. Ningyu had used up a great deal of energy to heal Venerate Spirit Void. Whether it was his spiritual strength or Yuan Qi, both were mostly exhausted. He could use this time to rest while Dan Guzi was looking for something. There wasn't much time left for Ningyu. Seeing Ningyu's actions, the Sword of Evil's mouth twitched. Ningyu didn't want him to stay behind just to watch, right? Every minute, throw in a sovereign grade origin crystal. As long as I don't tell you to stop, you can't stop. As if reading the Sword of Evil's mind, Ningyu's words rang out in the Sword of Evil's ears. All right. Sword Evil didn't dare to tarry. He hastily grabbed the bag of holding Dan Guzi had left behind and tossed it into the altar according to Ningyu's instructions. Crunch. With every minute that passed, the Sword of Evil would throw in a sovereign grade origin crystal. Time passed. In the first few hours, there were no changes to the altar. 5 hours later, 300 sovereign grade origin crystals. 5 hours later, Sword Nefarious had thrown out a total of 300 Emperor grade origin crystals. Stop for half an hour. After that, throw in 2 sovereign grade origin crystals every minute. Ningyu's voice once more rang out in the Sword of Evil's ears. Venerable Sword Evil had no intention of disobeying Ningyu, and he did as he was told. Swish. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 5 hours passed. 5 hours, 600 sovereign grade origin crystals. Due to the increase in speed, another 600 sovereign grade origin crystals disappeared from the interspatial pouch. Rest for half an hour. After half an hour, throw in 4 sovereign grade origin crystals every minute. Ningyu's voice rang out in the Sword of Evil's ears once more. The Sword of Evil's face was filled with black lines. At this rate, no matter how many sovereign grade origin crystals he had, it wouldn't be enough. Stop until Dan Guzi appears. Fortunately, after only an hour, the Sword of Evil had thrown out 240 sovereign grade origin crystals before Ningyu told the Sword of Evil to stop. Letting out a long breath, the Sword of Evil put away the interspatial pouch and obediently retreated to the other side. In truth, the Sword of Evil was really afraid that Ningyu wouldn't stop. After all, there weren't many sovereign grade origin crystals left in the interspatial pouch. Creak. After another few hours, the door to the secret chamber was slowly pushed open from the outside. Dan Guzi walked in with large strides. Ningyu, I've found the things you wanted me to find. I've prepared 3 portions of each item. As soon as he entered the secret chamber, Dan Guzi tossed the interspatial pouch to Ningyu. Pa. Catching the interspatial pouch, Ningyu said to Dan Guzi, I need your help. Help with what? Dan Guzi was slightly taken aback. The thing I asked you to find is used to refine puppets. Ningyu said, you've prepared 3 portions in total. You, me, and the Sword of Evil, 1 each. We must refine puppets as soon as possible. Puppets. The Sword of Evil and Dan Guzi exchanged a glance, both seeing the shock in each other's eyes. Refining puppets. Could it be that Ningyu knew how to refine puppets? Swish. Swish. Chapter 1201. Kill. Rumble. As the information entered their minds, the Sword of Evil and Dan Guzi's expressions changed from confusion to shock. After the shock, Dan Guzi said, it really is the method to refine a puppet. However, your method is a little special. It is indeed very special. Ordinary puppets aren't this complicated to refine. The Sword of Evil added, this puppet of yours is not only complicated to refine, but it will only be at the manifestation realm after it's successfully refined. In the Sword of Evil's opinion, even if you wanted to refine a puppet, it should be at the Paragon realm. What was the use of creating a blessed realm puppet? Ningyu, do you not have enough materials? After some thought, the Sword of Evil hesitated. If it's not enough, I can go out and look for more. It's not a problem with the materials. Just follow the method I told you. Don't ask anything else. Ningyu didn't say anything else. Instead, he sat down cross-legged and split the materials into 3 portions. He gave one to Danguzi and one to the Sword of Evil. After receiving the materials, Danguzi and the Sword of Evil tactfully didn't ask any more questions. Since they trusted Ningyu, they might as well trust him to the end. This was a crucial moment of life and death. If the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array couldn't be activated, and the Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable returned, the consequences would be unthinkable. In order not to end up in such a miserable state, the Sword of Evil and Danguzi unleashed their full strength. The speed at which they refined the puppet wasn't any slower than Ningyu's. Time passed quickly. An hour later. The puppet that Ningyu and the other 2 had refined was in its embryonic form. On the surface, Ningyu's puppet was the most perfect. It didn't look much different from a real person. The only difference was that its face wasn't visible. Danguzi, Sword of Evil, refine the puppets according to my size. After saying that, Ningyu placed his hands on the face of the puppet and began to shape it. Kai. The shaping process was relatively long. It took Ningyu a full 2 hours to mold the puppet's face. This, looking at the face of the puppet Ningyu had refined, Danguzi and the Sword of Evil's jaws dropped. The reason why Ningyu made them refine puppets and taught them the method was so that they could refine puppets that were similar to him and use them to deceive the Heaven and Earth Limitless Array. This was because the puppets that Ningyu had created looked exactly like Ningyu. The only difference was the difference in aura and temperament. Rumble. However, after Ningyu injected some of his aura into the puppet, the difference in aura completely disappeared. The puppet that Ningyu had refined could be called Ningyu number 2. Similar, they were too similar. They were completely carved out of the same mold. Sword of Evil, Danguzi, what are you waiting for? Hurry up. Seeing that the Sword of Evil and the others were still in a daze, Ningyu immediately said, I can sense experts heading to the capital. If I'm not wrong, it's definitely Venerable Great Desolation and Venerable Saber Mountain. What? Hearing this, the Sword of Evil and Danguzi hurriedly spread out their perception to probe the capital. Nothing. After probing, Danguzi frowned. Where did someone come from? I didn't sense anything either. The Sword of Evil nodded. Don't waste words. I told you to refine, so do it. Ningyu said in a low voice. The reason why Ningyu could sense Venerable Great Desolation and Venerable Saber Mountain's auras was because of the law of space and the sapling. The law of space kept making noises, and the sapling also struggled to leave the storage ring. If it wasn't for Ningyu suppressing it, the sapling and the law of space would have already flown away from the capital. 3 hours. Venerable Great Desolation and the others will arrive in 3 hours at most. Ningyu's expression was extremely grave. 3 hours seemed like a lot of time to perfect the puppets, but in reality, it was far from enough. Because Ningyu didn't just need to perfect the puppet, he also needed to activate the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array. Activating the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array required a lot of time. 3 hours. Completely not enough. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu's expression became extremely solemn. Regardless of the consequences, he threw away all distracting thoughts and began to focus on perfecting the puppet. TSK. Reality proved that when you put your heart and soul into something, you could achieve twice the result with half the effort. An hour later, Ningyu forced a drop of blood essence into the puppet. Instantly, the puppet opened its eyes, and a peak manifestation realm aura erupted from its body. However, the puppet's aura at the peak of the manifestation realm disappeared in a flash. I can only maintain a peak manifestation realm aura for 5 minutes. I can't waste it. With a thought, Ningyu completely suppressed the puppet's aura. He couldn't let the puppet release its aura unless it was a critical moment. TSK. Not long after Ningyu successfully refined the puppet, the Sword of Evil and Danguzi also successfully refined the puppet. In comparison, the puppet refined by the Sword of Evil and Danguzi was slightly inferior. Aura. Its appearance was very similar to the puppet refined by Ningyu, but its aura was very different. Go. The difference in aura did not matter. With a flick of Ningyu's finger, 2 drops of blood flew out. The blood left a trail in midair and steadily entered the bodies of the 2 puppets. As the blood essence entered the bodies, the aura of the 2 puppets instantly became exactly the same as that of the puppets refined by Ningyu. Leave the Emperor-grade origin crystals here. You guys guard the door. Looking at the 3 puppets, Ningyu nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "The Great Wilderness Supremacy and the rest will probably be here in an hour. Don't fight them head-on. You must lure them here. Ha ha ha. Ningyu, who do you think we should lure here?" However, just as Ningyu finished speaking, a voice was heard. Crack, crack. After that, the space above the secret chamber suddenly split open, and then 2 figures appeared. The Great Wilderness Supremacy and the Saber Mountain Supremacy. The 2 figures were none other than the Great Wilderness Supremacy and the Saber Mountain Supremacy. Rumble. Rumble. Neither of them threw out a punch and the secret chamber was directly destroyed. Ningyu and the rest were completely exposed to the Great Wilderness Supremacy and the Great Wilderness Supremacy. Crack crack. Clenching his fists, Ningyu said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect you guys to arrive so quickly. Hehe, isn't it exactly what you wanted us to come?" With a smile, the Great Wilderness Supremacy descended. Venerable Great Desolation glanced at the 3 puppets before he continued, "Ningyu, have you been busy refining these 3 puppets instead of doing anything?" Chapter 1202. Plot. Supremacy Great Desolation, Supremacy Saber Mountain. Ningyu's expression turned ugly as he looked at the 2 figures that suddenly appeared. Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain's arrival was indeed troublesome. Ningyu knew that he had to activate the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array if he wanted to fight against Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain. "Ningyu, you actually have one last chance to live." Crossing his arms in front of his chest, the Venerable of Great Wilderness stared at Ningyu with interest and said, "Give me Lu Xuan and I will spare your life." "Oh. If you want to let me live, can you make the decision?" Since Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain didn't attack immediately, Ningyu secretly poured his aura into the puppet. It just didn't seem to change on the surface. Ha ha ha. Supremacy Great Desolation laughed maniacally. "Don't try to drive a wedge between us. You have no other choice today." As soon as the word choose left his mouth, the Great Wilderness Venerable charged towards Ningyu in a flash. Swish. Dan Guzi stepped in front of Ningyu. Bang. A crisp sound rang out. Dan Guzi was struck by Supremacy Great Desolation's fist and was sent flying several meters away. Poochie. Fresh blood spurted out and Dan Guzi's aura became extremely weak. How is this possible? Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Dan Guzi exclaimed in shock. 3 days ago, Supremacy Great Desolation wasn't this strong. In just 3 days, Supremacy Great Desolation's strength was already close to a rank 9 mid-human sovereign. This speed not only shocked Dan Guzi, but even Ningyu found it inconceivable. Nothing is impossible. Since Ningyu doesn't listen, then I'll start with you today. Supremacy Great Desolation shot out once more. Supremacy Great Desolation's battle strength was already infinitely close to a rank 9 mid-human sovereign. Poochie. The void was torn, and there was a sizzling sound. The Grand Desolation arrived in front of Pil Guzi in the blink of an eye. His right hand clenched into a fist, and he punched Pil Guzi's head. The Great Desolation Sovereign had used almost all his strength in this punch. It was all for the sake of killing Dan Guzi in one blow. At the same time, Venerable Da Huang took out a flag from his pocket. Not good, it's the 1,000 Ghosts Devouring Soul flag. Seeing the flag in Venerable Da Huang's hand, Ningyu's expression changed drastically. Ningyu had a deep understanding of the myriad Ghosts Devouring Soul flag. The 10,000 Ghosts Devouring Soul flag was an extremely vicious flag. Every time a martial artist was killed, their soul would be imprisoned within the flag. When the flag had 10,000 souls and the soul of a heaven-defying martial artist, it would undergo a metamorphosis. Clearly, the Great Desolation was planning on using Dan Guzi's soul as the last soul of the myriad ghost soul devouring flag. After all, Dan Guzi was a 9th-rank mortal sovereign, and his spiritual strength had reached the peak of the 8th rank. Go. At the critical moment, Ningyu lifted his right foot and kicked a puppet beside him. Rumble. The puppet was extremely fast. In an instant, it had reached Venerable Da Huang's side and exploded. Child's play. The Venerable of Great Wilderness did not take the self-destruction of the puppet at the peak of the manifestation realm to heart. Instead, he casually waved his right hand and a gush of vitality flew out of his sleeve, forming a protective shield of vitality in front of him. Crack. However, the vitality shield that was thrown out by the Venerable of Great Desolation could not withstand the puppet's self-explosion. Furthermore, the shockwaves from the puppet's self-destruction blasted towards Venerable Da Huang. Damn it, I'll spare your life for now. Cursing inwardly, Venerable Da Huang immediately retreated, narrowly avoiding the shockwaves from the puppet's self-destruction. Whoosh. Seeing Venerable Da Huang retreat, Dan Guzi let out a long sigh of relief. Ningyu, I've always been curious. Where did you hide Venerable Lingshu? Seeing that Venerable Da Huang was about to attack again, Venerable Saber Mountain spoke up. Hand over Venerable Lingshu and I can leave your corpse intact. You want to leave my corpse intact? Ningyu's expression did not change. Venerable Lingshu is hiding in the void. If you dare attack, he will immediately appear. Don't think I don't know you're spouting nonsense, said Venerable Saber Mountain coldly. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you'll know once you try. Ningyu spoke indifferently, and he seemed to be extremely composed and carefree. Damn it. If I had the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag, I would have attacked long ago. Venerable Saber Mountain's expression was ugly. Venerable Da Huang had the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag. Although Venerable Da Huang's strength was not on par with Venerable Saber Mountain's, Venerable Saber Mountain could no longer suppress him. A single mistake could cause everlasting sorrow. If he had known this would happen, Venerable Saber Mountain would have definitely snatched the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag. Now that he did not have the flag, Venerable Saber Mountain was a little afraid of Venerable Lingshu. After all, 3 days had passed. No one knew if Venerable Lingshu had recovered. The enemy was in the dark while he was in the light. It was not suitable for him to make the first move. Venerable Great Desolation, kill everyone except for Ningyu. Venerable Saber Mountain said calmly as he thought of a countermeasure. Old fox. How could Venerable Great Desolation not know what Venerable Saber Mountain was thinking? However, he had the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag and was not afraid of the hidden Venerable Lingshu. As long as Venerable Lingshu attacked, his myriad ghost-devouring soul flag would sound a warning. Not only was the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag strong in attack, it also had an extremely special function, warning. Venerable Saber Mountain, it's not that I can't attack. But when Venerable Lingshu comes, you have to get rid of him. Venerable Great Desolation said, Venerable Lingshu is a middle grade 9 human supreme. I'm only an early grade 9 human supreme. I'm definitely not his match. Of course. Leave Venerable Lingshu to me. Venerable Saber Mountain patted his chest and guaranteed. Nonsense. Venerable Lingshu better kill you and I'll get the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag. On the surface, Venerable Saber Mountain made a promise. In reality, he was filled with disdain. He definitely had to get his hands on a treasure like the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag. If he could get his hands on the myriad ghost-devouring soul flag and devour Venerable Lingshu, he could even go against a late grade 9 human supreme. Just because of this, he had fallen out with Venerable Lingshu long ago. Now, they were just using each other. Ningyu, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to hand over Lu Wei or not? After getting Venerable Saber Mountain's guarantee, Venerable Great Desolation said, hand over Lu Wei and I'll leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, die. You've already said this twice. When are you going to stop? Ningyu said indifferently, me, Dan Guzi, the Sword of Evil, the 3 of us, me too. Before Ningyu could finish his sentence, the Dark Emperor rushed in from outside the room. Not 3, 4. The Dark Emperor said. Ha ha ha, 4 pieces of trash want to go against me? Venerable Great Desolation was stunned when he saw the Dark Emperor. Then, he laughed maniacally. Today, I'll let you know that there's always someone better out there. Chapter 1203. Activate. From Supremacy Great Desolation's point of view, the Sword of Evil was the weakest among Ningyu's group of 4. Although Ningyu and the Dark Emperor were both peak 3rd grade human sovereigns, they were the 5 ultimate geniuses. A pinnacle 3rd grade human sovereign was much more powerful than an ordinary pinnacle 8th grade human sovereign. Humans picked on the weak and bullied the weak. This was Supremacy Great Desolation's code of conduct. Go. How could Ningyu let the Sword of Evil face Supremacy Great Desolation alone? Supremacy Great Desolation was a 9th grade human sovereign and had the 10,000 ghost devouring flag. Under such circumstances, the Sword of Evil probably wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. Swish. Swish. Hearing Ningyu's words, the Dark Emperor and Dan Guze's figures flashed, each sending a powerful attack towards Supremacy Great Desolation. As for Ningyu, he threw the remaining 2 puppets into the altar. Fight. Just as the puppets were thrown into the altar, Ningyu gritted his teeth, stomped on the ground, and entered the altar. Bang! Bang! Ningyu entered the altar, but Dan Guze and the Dark Emperor didn't have it easy. The 2 of them didn't gain any advantage against Dan Guze, and were quickly repelled. Poochie. Even the Dark Emperor and Dan Guze were repelled. One could imagine how tragic the outcome of the Sword of Evil would be. His body slammed into the wall, the Sword of Evil spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura became very weak. Supremacy Saber Mountain, why didn't you stop Ningyu? Supremacy Great Desolation didn't continue his attack, but said coldly, "That's the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array. Once it's activated, the consequences will be unimaginable." Supremacy Great Desolation was from the Sacred Heaven sect, and he had some understanding of ancient arrays like the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array. Once the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array was activated, its might would be extremely formidable. Not to mention the 10,000 ghost devouring soul flags. Even if he had 100,000 or 1 million ghost devouring soul flags, it would not be of much use. Haha, don't worry about it. Blade Mountain Venerable One grinned. A powerhouse needs to be the formation eye to activate the endless heaven and earth formation. Do you think Ningyu is a powerhouse? With Ningyu's peak grade 3 human sovereign cultivation, he'll probably be reduced to ashes the moment the endless heaven and earth array is activated. Rumble. As soon as Saber Mountain Venerable finished speaking, a rumbling sound was heard coming from the altar. Whoosh. Not long after the rumbling sound, a head ejected from the altar. Ningyu. Blade Mountain Venerable smiled wickedly as he looked at the head that flew out. I told you that Ningyu will die a graveless death as long as the endless heaven and earth formation is activated. That being said, why do I feel a little scared? Great Desolation Venerable asked doubtfully. What are you scared of? You have the myriad spirit devouring flag. Even if Ningyu comes out from the altar, you won't be afraid. Blade Mountain Venerable pouted his lips and said. Whoosh. At this moment, another head flew out from the altar. What? Blade Mountain Venerable and Great Desolation Venerable were shocked when they saw the face of the head. That was because the head was exactly the same as the one that flew out earlier. There were no changes. What's going on? Blade Mountain Venerable One was dumbfounded, extremely dumbfounded. Could it be that Ningyu replaced himself with a puppet to activate the endless heaven and earth formation? At this moment, Blade Mountain Venerable seemed to be enlightened and instantly understood what was going on. He had indeed seen the puppets when he entered the secret chamber. However, he did not think much of them. After all, the 3 puppets were only at the peak of the manifestation realm. He was a middle grade 9 human sovereign, so he could kill puppets at the peak of the manifestation realm with a single breath. You're smart. A calm voice resounded from the altar. Whoosh. Shortly after, a figure tore through the void and appeared above the altar. I used 2 puppets to deceive everyone. Now that the endless heaven and earth formation has been activated, the 2 of you won't be able to escape. We won't be able to escape. Saber Mountain Venerable One and Great Wilderness Venerable One looked at each other and noticed disdain in each other's eyes. Ningyu's current strength was still at the peak of the 3rd grade 9 human sovereign. His current strength could not pose any threat to them. Ningyu, stop playing tricks. You're no match for us. Come down here as soon as possible and kowtow to us a few times. Maybe we'll be merciful and spare your worthless life. Great Desolation Venerable and Blade Mountain Venerable said at the same time. Is that so? Ningyu raised the corner of his lips and said, Endless heaven and earth formation, rise. As Ningyu uttered the word rise, the 4 surrounding pillars suddenly left the ground. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The 4 pillars surrounded Ningyu and the altar. A steady stream of energy gushed out from the stone pillar and entered Ningyu's body. Ningyu's aura had also skyrocketed in a short period of time. Fortunately, I had Venerable Spiritual Shu's blessing to raise my cultivation to the peak of the 3rd grade 9 human sovereign. My physique has also been strengthened. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to endure the energy of the endless heaven and earth formation. Ningyu rejoiced as he threw the remaining Emperor-grade origin crystals into the altar. At the same time, to strengthen his aura, Ningyu took out 10 Shengyang pills and threw them into the altar. What a waste, what a waste. Blade Mountain Venerable and Great Desolation Venerable felt sorry for Ningyu's actions. 10 Shengyang pills had been wasted by Ningyu, so how could they not be furious? After recovering from his anger, Great Desolation Venerable was the first to charge out. 1000 Ghost Devouring Flag. In order to defeat Ningyu in one move, Great Desolation Venerable even used the 1000 Ghost Devouring Flag. Where did that piece of trash Venerable Spiritual Shu go? Blade Mountain Venerable had wanted to make a move, but when he remembered that Venerable Spiritual Shu was still in the dark, he immediately gave up. If Venerable Spiritual Shu launched a sneak attack while he was attacking, he wouldn't be far from death. Hee. Ningyu smiled faintly at the incoming flag. He made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and a ball of essence chi instantly formed, clashing head-on with the flag. Kai. The flag and the ball of energy clashed. As expected, the ball of yuan chi turned into nothingness, and the flag tore through the void, blasting toward Ningyu. Ningyu, originally, I was planning on having Dan Guzi be the final soul. Who would have thought that you would interfere midway? Since that's the case, I'll have you be the final soul to complete the myriad ghost soul devouring flag. Great Desolation Venerable raised his head proudly. Great Desolation Venerable was extremely confident in the 1000 ghost devouring flag. Before devouring so many souls, Great Desolation Venerable had already used the 1000 ghost devouring flag to kill a 9th grade 9 human sovereign. Chapter 1204. Chapter 1204. Chapter 1204. Be trapped. Venerable Great Wilderness was right. The myriad ghosts devouring soul flag did not disappoint him. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Ningyu and blasted into Ningyu's chest. Bang! The terrifying force that came from his chest caused Ningyu to fall back and crash into one of the stone pillars. Catcher! Ningyu's body slammed into the stone pillar, causing it to shatter. Shio. The stone pillar shattered, and 3 extremely terrifying energies entered Ningyu's body in the blink of an eye. Crackle! With so much energy entering his body, Ningyu's body began to swell. Moreover, in the process of expanding, crackling sounds could be heard from Ningyu's body. The sound grew faster and faster, and in the end, Ningyu spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, Ningyu's aura plummeted to freezing point. Ningyu's sudden change stunned the Great Desolation Sovereign for a moment before he burst into wild laughter. What should I say to you? If you don't have the ability to control the heaven and earth limitless array, then don't try to show off. If you obediently do as I say, then you'll still have a complete corpse. Now, it's very likely that you'll die without a burial. The Great Wilderness Reverend looked at Ningyu as though he was looking at a fool and said, I don't even need to do anything. You'll be torn apart by 5 horses and explode. You're too naive. These words came out of Ningyu's mouth without any fluctuations. At this moment, Ningyu was not affected by the drop in his aura. Instead, he said in disdain, Great Desolation Supremacy, open your eyes wide and watch how I subdue the 10,000 ghost devouring flag. You want to subdue my 1000 ghost devouring soul flag? Ha. As if he had just heard the funniest joke in the world, the Great Wilderness Venerable laughed hysterically and said, "I'll stand right here and watch. How did you subdue me? How is this possible?" Venerable Da Huang was dumbfounded. He stood there in a daze, his eyes fixed on Ningyu, who was on top of the altar. Ningyu repeatedly waved his hands, and 3 stone pillars cracked in an instant. Catcha. Kacha. Catcha. After the stone pillar split open, 3 terrifying energy fluctuations entered Ningyu's body. As the energy entered his body, Ningyu's aura, which had already dropped to the freezing point, instantly became stronger. The speed at which Ningyu's aura was increasing was clearly beyond the scope of ordinary people's understanding. In just a few seconds, Ningyu's aura became so strong that even Saber Mountain Venerable was afraid of it. "We must stop Ningyu, because if this continues, the consequences will be unimaginable." As Ningyu's aura grew stronger, Saber Mountain Venerable became more worried. As long as Ningyu completely refined the energy released by the 3 stone pillars, even if he and Great Wilderness Venerable joined hands, they might not be able to subdue Ningyu. "Great Wilderness Venerable, I'll help you retrieve the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag. You go kill Pilguzi and the rest." Saber Mountain Venerable's eyes turned, and he instantly charged towards the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag. Heaven and Earth Infinite Array, rise. At this moment, Ningyu suddenly waved his hands, and the surrounding wind and clouds suddenly changed. Several huge stone pillars appeared, trapping Great Wilderness Venerable and Saber Mountain Venerable inside. Of the 16 stone pillars, 8 trapped Saber Mountain Venerable, and 8 trapped Great Wilderness Venerable. Damn it! If I had known earlier, I would have killed Ningyu first. Being trapped in the stone pillars, Saber Mountain Venerable and Great Wilderness Venerable were filled with regret. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Both Saber Mountain Venerable and Great Wilderness Venerable were experienced experts, so they quickly calmed down. Their top priority was not to complain, but to think of a way to break the stone pillars, and then think of a way to snatch the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag. No matter what, the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag could not fall into Ningyu's hands. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Saber Mountain Venerable, what you need to do now is to think of a way to break the stone pillars as soon as possible. I'll pay attention to the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag, and guarantee that Ningyu will not be able to snatch it away. It was unknown what Great Wilderness Venerable thought of, but he suddenly calmed down. "Why are you so confident?" Saber Mountain Venerable asked doubtfully. "It's not that I'm confident, but look at what Ningyu is doing." Great Wilderness Venerable shook his head and pointed at Ningyu. Swoosh. Hearing that, Saber Mountain Venerable turned his head and looked at Ningyu. Saber Mountain Venerable 1 laughed maniacally when he took a look at it. Ha 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 ha. Saber Mountain Venerable almost choked on his laughter. Although the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag didn't belong to him, he knew how terrifying the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag was. At this moment, Ningyu placed his right hand on the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag and sucked out the soul energy within. "Ningyu, you're courting death." The corner of Great Wilderness Venerable's lips rose as he eerily said, "I've already erased the memories of the souls within the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag. Right now, they only have one memory, devouring. No matter who it is, it's devouring, devouring, and devouring again. You're really daring to have designs on these souls. The ignorant are truly fearless." Great Wilderness Venerable was relieved. Even he didn't dare to devour the souls within the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag, but a mere pinnacle third-grade sovereign like Ningyu actually dared to do such a reckless thing. In Great Wilderness Venerable's view, Ningyu's death was only a matter of time. "Ningyu, you mustn't do that." Dan Guzi also knew how terrifying the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag was. Seeing that Ningyu was devouring the soul energy within the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag, he hurriedly shouted, "The 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag is extremely terrifying. You mustn't do anything stupid." "I know what I'm doing." Ningyu waved his hand and said indifferently. Only Ningyu knew the truth. No one else knew. Ningyu wasn't devouring the souls within the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag, but purifying them. In other words, Ningyu was erasing the memories of the souls within the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag. The 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag was an extremely vicious artifact, so Ningyu naturally wouldn't use it. However, Ningyu wasn't a saint. In any case, the souls within the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag had long since lost their chance of survival. Therefore, Ningyu first purified their souls before using a secret technique to refine the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag into the 10,000 ghost sacred flag. Although the 10,000 ghost sacred flag and 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag only differed by a few words, their power and effects were completely different. If the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag wanted to increase its power, it could only continuously devour souls. If the 10,000 ghost sacred flag wanted to increase its power, it could not only devour souls, but also devour energy. As long as there was enough energy, the 10,000 ghost sacred flag's power would be extremely terrifying. You know what you're doing? Ha ha ha, I think you've lost your mind. Great Wilderness Venerable laughed maniacally. I want to see where you get your confidence from. You can, idiot, you're always laughing. I'll definitely make you laugh to your heart's content later. Ningyu interrupted Great Wilderness Venerable's laughter. Open your eyes and watch how I subdue the 10,000 ghost soul devouring flag. After activating the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array, Ningyu was no longer as afraid of Great Wilderness Venerable and Saber Mountain Venerable. Chapter 1205. You're finished, ha ha ha. Supremacy Great Desolation didn't seem to hear Ningyu's words. I want to see just how you're going to collect my myriad ghost soul devouring flag. No one knew the terror of the myriad ghost soul devouring flag better than Supremacy Great Desolation. Ningyu wanted to collect the myriad ghost soul devouring flag. What a joke. Ningyu, you can't mess around. At this time, Dan Guzi once more said, before taking the myriad ghost soul devouring flag, I suggest we kill Venerable Great Desolation and Venerable Saber Mountain first. In Pil Guzi's opinion, since the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array had already been activated, why not kill Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable first? Only by killing Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable would he be able to collect the myriad ghost soul devouring flag with peace of mind. With Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable present, he felt very uneasy. I know what I'm doing. Ningyu said no more and focused on purifying the souls within the myriad ghost soul devouring flag. In truth, Ningyu also wanted to kill Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable first. However, as long as the myriad ghost soul devouring flag was not collected, Ningyu wouldn't be able to kill Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable. Although Ningyu wasn't afraid of them within the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array, it would be extremely difficult to kill them. After all, Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable were both rank 9 mortal sovereigns. Using the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array, Ningyu could only face them head-on. He couldn't kill them. In fact, if the Heaven and Earth Infinite Array ran out of energy, Ningyu might even be killed by Supremacy Great Desolation and Saber Mountain Venerable. The most important thing right now was to collect the myriad ghost soul devouring flag and purify the souls within, turning it into the myriad ghost holy flag. Only then would there be a chance of survival. Saber Mountain Venerable, quickly think of a way to break open the stone pillars. I'll keep an eye on Ningyu for you. Supremacy Great Desolation crossed his arms in front of his chest confidently. If there's any problem, contact me immediately. Remember, don't be impulsive. After saying that, Saber Mountain Venerable released his perception and began to study the stone pillar carefully. No, it's too slow. After glancing at Saber Mountain Venerable, Ningyu gave up on purifying the souls inside the flag. According to his purification speed, he would not be able to purify all the souls inside by the time Saber Mountain Venerable broke the stone pillar. What? Why did you stop? Continue. Seeing that Ningyu had stopped, the Venerable of Great Desolation curled his lips and said in disdain, if you know what's good for you, hurry up and let us out of the stone pillar. Otherwise, I'll let you know why flowers are so red. Idiot. Ningyu could not be bothered with Venerable Da Huang. Instead, he fell into deep thought. There was a limit to a person's power. There was no way to purify the soul force in the 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag in a short period of time. If there was someone else to help, thinking of this, Ningyu's mind moved and he began to communicate with the sapling and the law of space. The sapling and the law of space were special existences, and they might be able to purify souls very quickly. Buzz. Hearing Ningyu's words, the law of space and the sapling became very excited, and they rushed out of the spatial ring. Block. Ningyu did not want Danguzi and the Venerable of Great Desolation to know about the law of space and the sapling. Thus, with a thought, a layer of white mist appeared around him. What's going on? The white mist was very powerful, and it completely blocked Danguzi and the Venerable of Great Desolation's senses. The Grand Desolation and Pilguzi were both shocked. They had no idea what was going on. Ningyu did not take Venerable Great Desolation and the others' shock to heart. Ningyu was completely stunned by what was happening in front of him. The sapling and the law of space were like hungry wolves. They practically purified 1,000 souls in an instant. Based on this speed, even if the purification speed was a bit slower, they could still purify all the souls in a few dozen minutes. No wonder the sapling and the law of space tried their best to break free from the spatial ring and fly away from the capital when I asked them to locate Saber Mountain and the Venerable of Great Desolation. Ningyu finally understood. The sapling and the law of space were interested in the souls inside the 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag. However, Ningyu did not think too much about it. With the help of the sapling and the law of space, he would soon be able to transform the 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag into the 10,000 ghost sacred flag. When that time came, it would be the death of Saber Mountain and the Crown Prince. Drip, drip. Time was always slipping away unknowingly. Soon, 15 minutes had passed. Within 15 minutes, Saber Mountain Venerable One had almost destroyed all the stone pillars around it. He believed that he would be able to completely destroy the stone pillars in a minute or two. Venerable of Great Desolation, let's attack together. Saber Mountain's eyes turned cold. He poured all the vital energy in his sea of consciousness into his palm and punched the nearest stone pillar. All right. Venerable of Great Desolation knew that the time was right. He also poured his vital energy into his fist and punched the nearest stone pillar. Crack, crack. Two crisp sounds were heard consecutively. The two stone pillars closest to Venerable of Great Desolation and Saber Mountain were completely smashed. Crack, crack, Venerable of Great Desolation and the rest punched several more times and smashed the remaining stone pillars. Ha ha ha. After all the stone pillars were smashed, Venerable of Great Desolation's signature maniacal laughter reverberated in the infinite heaven and earth array. Ningyu, stop hiding. Come out and let me see if you've subdued my 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag. Venerable of Great Desolation was in a great mood. Initially, he was a little worried when he was trapped by the stone pillars. Who would have thought that Ningyu would foolishly try to subdue the 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag? Now that the 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag was not subdued, they were able to successfully escape. Whoosh! At this moment, Ningyu flicked his wrist, and the white mist instantly disappeared. Oh, you're quite capable to be able to subdue my 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag. Venerable of Great Desolation raised his brows when he saw the 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag in Ningyu's hand. Toss it over. I promise you that as long as you toss the 10,000 ghost-devouring soul flag over, I'll let you die peacefully. Why are you wasting your breath on him? In comparison, Saber Mountain Venerable wasn't that easy to talk to. He took a step forward and unleashed his aura, which pressed towards Ningyu in a frenzy. Ningyu, I, Saber Mountain Venerable, will make my words clear today. No one in this world can save you. Saber Mountain Venerable was domineering to the extreme. In fact, Saber Mountain Venerable was also very sullen. He was a 9th grade middle human supreme, yet he was fooled by Ningyu. It would be fine if Ningyu was a 9th grade middle human supreme, but Ningyu was only a 3rd grade pinnacle human supreme. If news of him being toyed with by a 3rd grade pinnacle human supreme reached the Alchemy Union headquarters, where would he put his anger? Therefore, in Saber Mountain Venerable's heart, Not only did Ningyu have to die today, but everyone present had to die as well. Chapter 1206. Kill 1. Saber Mountain Venerable, don't be in such a rush. In any case, we have plenty of time. Let's play with them first, and then kill them when we're done. Venerable Great Desolation seemed to have found his confidence. He first spoke to Saber Mountain Venerable, then turned to Ningyu. Ningyu, I advise you to hurry up and hand over the myriad ghost devouring flag. Once I take action, you won't be able to live. Here. Ningyu seemed to be moved by Venerable Great Desolation's words. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed the myriad ghost devouring flag to Venerable Great Desolation. It's over, it's all over. Ningyu's actions caused the Sword of Evil and Danguzi to have the same thought. Although they were within the endless heaven and earth formation, they had basically lost any chance of killing Venerable Great Desolation and the others. If this dragged on and they ran out of sovereign-grade origin crystals, they would become lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Just what is going on? This time, even the Dark Emperor was a bit confused. Just what was going on with Ningyu? Why had he given up on the chance to trap Venerable Great Desolation and the others, and instead chose to subdue the myriad ghost-devouring flag? But now, not only had he failed to subdue the myriad ghost-devouring flag, he had even put himself in extreme danger. Saber Mountain Venerable, leave Ningyu to me. In any case, your target is Danguzi. Smiling at Saber Mountain Venerable, Venerable Great Desolation stomped on the ground, and his body shot forward. Venerable Da Huang's target was the 1,000 ghost-devouring flag. Everyone knew that as long as Venerable Da Huang obtained the 1,000 ghost-devouring soul flag, it would be Ningyu's death. I'll let you show off for a while. Saber Mountain Venerable's eyes flashed viciously, and he tore through the void, charging at Danguzi. Bang! Saber Mountain Venerable's attack was vicious, and he sent Danguzi flying with a single blow, sending him crashing into the barrier of the endless heaven and earth formation. Bang! Bang! Following that, Saber Mountain Venerable punched Evil Sword Venerable 2 more times. One of his punches landed on Evil Sword Venerable's chest while the other hit the Dark Emperor's back. Even a grade 9 human sovereign like Danguzi couldn't block Blade Mountain Venerable's attack, let alone the Sword of Evil and the Dark Emperor. Despite that, the Sword of Evil and the Dark Emperor were not killed because Saber Mountain Venerable chose to hold back. Saber Mountain Venerable could tell that the Dark Emperor was a purple-gold sky-devouring hound. He wanted to use the Dark Emperor to lure out as many purple-gold sky-devouring hounds as possible. In the eyes of a peak 8th grade alchemist, the heaven-swallowing hound was an excellent ingredient for refining elixirs. Ah! At this moment, a blood-curdling scream like that of a pig being slaughtered came from the side. Whoosh! Upon hearing that, Blade Mountain Venerable immediately turned around. I can't believe it. Saber Mountain Venerable could not help but curse when he saw what was happening. Terrifying. It was too terrifying. At this moment, Venerable Great Desolation's body was expanding and becoming bigger and bigger. In a short period of time, the Great Wilderness Venerable had expanded several times. Rumble. When the Great Wilderness Venerable's body expanded to the limit, he naturally self-destructed. Come here. Ningyu reacted swiftly and immediately controlled the Heavenly Earth Array to pull the Dark Emperor and the rest over. Block. At the same time, Ningyu activated the Myriad Ghosts Devouring Soul Flag. No, it should be called the Myriad Ghosts Sacred Flag. Ningyu activated the Myriad Ghosts Sacred Flag to form the first layer of defense around him. After the first layer of defense was formed, Ningyu was still not assured. Thus, he threw a few Shenyang pellets into the altar and formed the second layer of defense with the help of the Heavenly Earth Array. Whoosh! Venerable Great Desolation was a 9th grade human sovereign, so the aftermath of his self-destruction was extremely terrifying. Countless aftershocks spread out from the location of Venerable Great Desolation's self-destruction. Damn it! Damn it! The sudden change made Saber Mountain Venerable have the urge to curse. He had hundreds of questions in his heart. What happened? How did Venerable Great Desolation die? Why did Venerable Great Desolation self-destruct? All sorts of questions rose in Saber Mountain Venerable's mind, but he couldn't find an explanation. Helplessly, Saber Mountain Venerable could only suppress the questions in his mind and summoned all the energy and soul energy in his body to form 2 layers of defense around him. The first layer of defense was formed with energy. The second layer of defense was formed with soul energy. Crack. Evidently, the energy layer did not last long before it was destroyed by the aftershocks of Venerable Great Desolation's self-destruction. Saber Mountain Venerable was extremely worried. If the second layer of protection was broken through, he would be in grave danger. With such a powerful self-destruction, there's no way Ningyu and the rest can survive. It's a pity for my Shenyang pellets and myriad ghosts devouring soul flag. At this moment, Saber Mountain Venerable was still thinking about the Shenyang pellets and myriad ghosts devouring soul flag. Rumble. 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 The aftershocks of Venerable Great Desolation's self-destruction came wave after wave. Fortunately, Venerable Great Desolation had self-destructed within the infinite heaven and earth formation. Otherwise, the entire Great Xia Kingdom's capital might have been affected. After all, the self-destruction of a Grade 9 human supreme was terrifying to the point that it could instantly destroy the entire Great Xia Kingdom's capital. Damn it, it's not enough. At the same time, Ningyu's expression was extremely ugly. The first line of defense constructed by the 10,000 Spirits sacred flag was quickly destroyed by the aftershocks of Venerable Great Desolation's self-destruction. The first line of defense had been destroyed. The only thing they could do now was to rely on the second line of defense, which was the energy gushing out from the infinite heaven and earth formation's sacrificial altar. Go in. Helpless, Ningyu could only take out a few more Shenyang pellets and throw them into the sacrificial altar. With the replenishment of the Shenyang pellets, the energy gushing out from the sacrificial altar became more stable and would not be destroyed in an instant. Drip. Time flew by. Unknowingly, the aftershocks of Venerable Great Desolation's self-destruction were like a bottomless pit that was endless. Half an hour had passed since Venerable Great Wilderness self-detonated. The aftermath of Venerable Great Wilderness self-detonation had yet to dissipate completely. In this half an hour, Ningyu had used up dozens of Shenyang pellets and all the Emperor-grade essence crystals he had on him. Now, Ningyu had less than 20 Shenyang pellets on him. 18 of them. Ningyu only had 18 Shenyang pellets on him. Furthermore, Ningyu could not use these 18 Shenyang pellets to defend against the aftershocks of Venerable Great Desolation's self-destruction. He wanted to use the 18 Shenyang pellets and the infinite heaven and earth formation to increase his combat power in a short period of time to fight against Saber Mountain Venerable. Because Ningyu was in charge of the infinite heaven and earth formation, he could tell that Saber Mountain Venerable was fine. It was just that his Yuan Qi was slightly depleted. Rumble. Another few minutes passed. The aftershocks of Venerable Great Desolation's self-destruction finally dissipated completely. Phew, as the aftershocks dissipated, Ningyu and Saber Mountain Venerable heaved a sigh of relief in unison. The worries in their hearts had lessened significantly. Ningyu was thankful that he had 18 Shenyang pellets left. Saber Mountain Venerable was thankful that he had 90% of his combat power left. To the both of them, the self-destruction of Venerable Great Desolation was acceptable. Chapter 1207. Red Striped Sword Ningyu, I'm curious. Why did Reverend Great Desolation suddenly explode? Is it related to your 10,000 ghost devouring flag? When everything was settled, Venerable Mountain's eyes shone with a terrifying light. He stared at the 1,000 ghost devouring flag in Ningyu's hand and asked in confusion. Wrong. Ningyu shook his head and said, this isn't the myriad ghost devouring flag. It's the myriad ghost sacred flag. 1,000 ghost sacred flag. Saber Mountain Venerable was dumbfounded. He knew about the 10,000 ghosts devouring soul flag. It was an extremely vicious magic treasure. But what the hell was the 10,000 ghosts holy flag? He had roamed the continent for so many years, but he had never heard of the existence of the 10,000 ghost sacred flag. Could it be that Ningyu was already at the end of his tether and was stalling for time? With that thought, Saber Mountain Venerable added, I don't care if it's the 10,000 soul-devouring flag or the 10,000 spirit sacred flag. Firstly, Why would the great wilderness venerable self-destruct? Secondly, throw the flag in your hand over. Ningyu, if I'm not wrong, you're already at the end of your rope. I'm already being extremely benevolent by not killing you right away. If that's the case, do I have to be grateful to you? Ningyu shrugged and said, since you've asked me so sincerely, I'll reluctantly tell you that the great desolation venerable had self-destructed because of the 10,000 spirits sacred flag. Ningyu then waved the 10,000 holy flag in his hand and continued, the great wilderness venerable wants to use the 10,000 holy flag against me, but little did he know that I've already subdued the 10,000 holy spirit devouring flag and purified the souls inside. The current 10,000 ghosts sacred flag is much more powerful than before. Impossible. Saber Mountain Venerable widened his eyes and exclaimed, the 10,000 soul-devouring ghosts flag contains 10,000 martial artist souls. Even if you started purifying them 3 days ago, it's impossible for you to purify them completely. Believe it or not, what does it have to do with me? Ningyu twitched his mouth and said to the Dark Emperor and the others, leave the endless heaven and earth formation first. I'd like to communicate with Saber Mountain Venerable. Leave. Saber Mountain Venerable said proudly. Without my permission, no one is allowed to leave the endless heaven and earth array. If I want them to leave, what can you do about it? Ningyu's face was expressionless as he waved his hands, causing the space around him to split open. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The Dark Emperor, the Sword of Evil, and Dan Guzi knew that they wouldn't be able to help Ningyu if they stayed, so they all disappeared into spatial tears. This is infuriating. Saber Mountain Venerable gritted his teeth when he saw the Dark Emperor and the others leaving. Ningyu was clearly not giving him face. Initially, he had planned to have a good talk with Ningyu and only make his move after he had tricked the 10,000 ghosts sacred flag over. From the looks of it now, it was completely unnecessary. Stubborn people must die. Soul attack. With a thought, Saber Mountain Venerable directly launched a soul attack at Ningyu. In terms of soul attack, Saber Mountain Venerable was very experienced. After all, his soul power was at the pinnacle of grade 8, while Ningyu's soul power was only at the intermediate grade 7. No. When did Ningyu's soul power advance to the pinnacle of grade 7? Saber Mountain Venerable's expression changed. He was very shocked. It's not good to be distracted now. Ningyu waved his hands and instantly sent out several palm prints. Universe palm. Although Ningyu hadn't cultivated the universe palm to the extreme, it was still more than enough to deal with Saber Mountain Venerable who was distracted. TSK. The palm prints and Saber Mountain Venerable's soul attack collided and quickly disappeared. Whoosh. Following that, Ningyu waved his palms again and sent out several palm prints towards Saber Mountain Venerable. Oh no. Saber Mountain Venerable was indeed a middle grade 9 supreme as he reacted very quickly. The palm prints that Ningyu sent out seemed powerful on the surface, but to Saber Mountain Venerable, they were very ordinary. The reason why he was attacked by Ningyu earlier was because of his carelessness. Now that he was focused, Ningyu wouldn't stand a chance against him anymore. All of you, get in. Seeing that Saber Mountain Venerable and his palm prints came into contact, Ningyu hurriedly threw the remaining 18 Xingyang pills into the altar. At the same time, he began to control the infinite heaven and earth formation. Boom. As soon as the 18 Xingyang pills entered the altar, it exploded. Along with the explosion, a terrifying energy shot out from the altar and entered Ningyu's body. To begin with, Ningyu's aura wasn't too weak. Now that so much energy had entered his body, Ningyu's aura started to rise crazily. In a short period of time, Ningyu's aura had been strengthened to the limit. The 18 Xingyang pills and the energy contained in the infinite heaven and earth formation allowed Ningyu to strengthen his aura to a level that even Saber Mountain Venerable was afraid of. Damn it! With a flick of his sleeves, several cold flashes flew out and shattered the palm prints that Ningyu had sent out. After shattering the palm prints, Saber Mountain Venerable felt the terrifying aura that Ningyu was emitting and his face turned extremely ugly. To be honest, Saber Mountain Venerable had not expected this situation at the start. Now that Venerable Great Wilderness was forced to self-destruct, he wasn't very optimistic. Within the infinite heaven and earth formation, he wasn't 100% confident that he could kill Ningyu. Most importantly, he didn't know when Supremacy Spiritual Shu would fully recover. Once Supremacy Spiritual Shu recovered, Saber Mountain Venerable would be doomed eternally. I must kill Ningyu as soon as possible and think of a way to control the infinite heaven and earth formation. At that moment, Saber Mountain Venerable only had one thought in his mind. Kill Ningyu and control the formation. That was the only way he could leave the Great Xia Kingdom successfully and be safe. Apart from Ningyu, Supremacy Spiritual Shu wasn't someone to be trifled with either. Saber Mountain Venerable, I'll give you a chance now. At that moment, Ningyu's lips curled into an arc. Kneel down and kowtow to me 10 times, and I'll consider sparing your life. You want to kill me? Saber Mountain Venerable pointed at his nose and said coldly. Even if your aura has been strengthened to this extent, you're still not my match. With that, Saber Mountain Venerable charged at Ningyu like a madman. Go. Looking at the approaching Saber Mountain Venerable, Ningyu flicked his finger. In an instant, the 10,000 spirits sacred flag flew out and clashed with Saber Mountain Venerable. Rumble. Souls kept flying out of the 10,000 spirits sacred flag, pressuring Saber Mountain Venerable. Although the souls in the 10,000 spirits sacred flag were very weak and were not Saber Mountain Venerable's match in a one-on-one fight, there were many souls in the flag, and Saber Mountain Venerable could win with numbers. When hundreds or thousands of souls attacked at the same time, the power was still great. Even a middle grade 9 supreme like Saber Mountain Venerable found it troublesome. Ningyu, you forced me to do this. Saber Mountain Venerable knew that he couldn't repel so many souls within a short period of time, so he gritted his teeth and took out a flying sword. Red patterned sword. Chapter 1208. Rise. Royal Superior Grade Flying Sword. Ningyu's expression changed when he saw the flying sword that Saber Mountain Venerable took out. He immediately wanted to retrieve the 10,000 Ghosts Sacred Flag. He had yet to completely refine the 10,000 Ghosts Sacred Flag, so he could not unleash its peak power. In other words, the 10,000 Ghosts Sacred Flag could only unleash 50% of its peak power. To unleash 100% of its power, Ningyu had to be given enough time to completely refine the 10,000 Ghosts Sacred Flag. You're only retrieving the 10,000 Ghosts Devouring Flag now. Don't you think it's a little too late? Saber Mountain Venerable smirked and waved the Scarlet Rune Sword in his hand. Whoosh. The Scarlet Rune Sword was a Royal Superior Grade flying sword. In addition to the fact that Saber Mountain Venerable was a middle grade 9th grade supreme, he could unleash 100% of the Scarlet Rune Sword's power. 100% of the Scarlet Rune Sword's power was extremely terrifying. Saber Mountain Venerable had used the Scarlet Rune Sword to kill a middle grade 9th grade supreme in the past, so it was more than enough to deal with Ningyu now. Several sword rays shot out and charged at Ningyu. Swish, swish, swish. Facing so many sword lights, Ningyu unleashed his perception and combined it with the spatial law's warning, trying his best to dodge. Although Saber Mountain Venerable attacked with many sword rays, it was difficult for him to hit Ningyu. Ningyu dodged the attacks of more than 10 sword rays very quickly. Furthermore, Ningyu did not seem to be struggling at all. In fact, he seemed to be doing it with ease. Saber Mountain Venerable, if this is all you're capable of, then I'm sorry to tell you that you'll definitely die today. Ningyu took out a Shenyang pill and popped it into his mouth after dodging Saber Mountain Venerable's sword rays. The show has only just begun. Saber Mountain Venerable was a veteran powerhouse, so how could he be frightened by Ningyu? He waved the Scarlet Rune Sword in his hand and dozens of sword rays flew out in an instant, trapping Ningyu in the middle. I really want to see what kind of show there is. Ningyu's face was expressionless as he said, I have to remind you that Sage Spirit Shu has long recovered. The reason why he didn't make a move was because he didn't think much of you. Venerable Master Lingshu is a coward. If he dares to come out, I'll make sure he dies without a burial place. Venerable Saber Mountain said proudly. You even want to kill revered Spiritual Shu? Ningyu looked at Venerable Saber Mountain as if he was looking at a fool and said in disdain, Venerable Spiritual Shu is the same as you, a middle phase 9th grade sovereign. What makes you think that you can kill him? Why? Because of my scarlet rune sword. Saber Mountain Venerable waved the red rune sword in his hand and said, "The red rune sword is a superior royal rank flying sword. I don't believe that trash Venerable Master Ling Shu has a superior royal rank flying sword." Saber Mountain Venerable was so sure because he knew better than anyone else how fearsome a high monarch flying sword was. He was a middle phase 9th grade sovereign, and coupled with a superior royal rank flying sword, he was practically invincible among those of the same rank. Furthermore, Saber Mountain Venerable did not believe that Venerable Master Ling Shu could recover so quickly. "You're worried." At this moment, Ningyu's words rang in Saber Mountain Venerable's ears. "Nonsense, why would I be worried?" Saber Mountain Venerable rebuked with uneasiness flashing across his eyes. "Haha, although the scarlet rune sword in your hand is a superior royal rank flying sword, it's incomplete and has many flaws." With a smile, Ningyu continued, "At its peak, the scarlet rune sword is indeed a superior royal rank flying sword, and it's very powerful. However, the scarlet rune sword in your hand has already been damaged, and you'll need to consume your blood essence to unleash its fighting strength. Otherwise, with your cultivation as a middle phase 9th grade sovereign and your superior royal rank scarlet rune sword, you can kill me effortlessly. Why are you dawdling here?" Dawdling here means that you're feeling guilty, which means that you're not confident in killing me or dealing with Venerable Spiritual Shu. "You're afraid." Rumble. Every word that Ningyu said sounded like thunderbolts from the 9 heavens in Saber Mountain Venerable One's mind, causing him to be extremely shocked. "Nonsense. You're spouting nonsense." Saber Mountain Venerable said fiercely, "Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish." As soon as the word "you" fell, Saber Mountain Venerable tore through the void with his scarlet rune sword and appeared before Ningyu in an instant, slashing down with his sword. Block. Although Ningyu looked down on Saber Mountain Venerable verbally, his actions showed that he valued Saber Mountain Venerable. With a thought, Ningyu took out the red demon sword and clashed head-on with Saber Mountain Venerable's scarlet rune sword. Ding! As the two flying swords clashed, a crisp sound echoed in the infinite heaven and earth array. After a single move, both Ningyu and Saber Mountain Venerable retreated simultaneously. Judging from the distance they retreated, Ningyu and Saber Mountain Venerable were equally matched, and neither of them gained the upper hand. "Your flying sword is also a superior monarch." Saber Mountain Venerable's face was extremely gloomy. He did not expect Ningyu to have a superior monarch flying sword too, and it was also a superior monarch. A superior monarch flying sword was extremely rare, and Saber Mountain Venerable had put in a lot of effort to obtain the scarlet rune sword back then, to the extent that he almost lost his life. Now that Ningyu, who was a peak grade 3 sovereign, also had a superior monarch flying sword, he felt unbalanced. "Who said that you're the only one allowed to have a superior monarch flying sword, and I can't?" Ningyu shrugged and said, "You said that I'm at the end of my rope just now, but it seems like I'm not at the end of my rope." "You're at the end of your rope." Through this exchange of blows, Ningyu had already determined Saber Mountain Venerable's true combat power. The Great Wilderness Venerable's self-destruction had a huge impact on Saber Mountain Venerable. Otherwise, even if the scarlet rune sword was flawed, Saber Mountain Venerable would not have been evenly matched with him. At the very least, he would have had the upper hand. Ha ha ha. Saber Mountain Venerable raised his head and laughed maniacally. He then said coldly, "Ningyu, I didn't expect you to notice me even though I hid so well. However, you've overlooked something." "What is it?" Ningyu was puzzled. "You've forgotten where I'm from." Following that, Saber Mountain Venerable closed his eyes and slowly rose. "Where I'm from? Of course, I'm from the Alchemy Guild." "Oh no." Ningyu was slightly stunned. However, Ningyu reacted quickly. Saber Mountain Venerable was from the Alchemy Guild, so he definitely had a heaven-defying elixir that could increase his strength. Crack. Ningyu's worries were not unreasonable. All of a sudden, Saber Mountain Venerable opened his eyes, and a red elixir flew out from his sleeve. Saber Mountain Venerable opened his mouth and swallowed the elixir. Boom! A muffled sound was heard. Something seemed to have opened up in Saber Mountain Venerable's body, and his aura instantly increased from a middle grade 9 sovereign to a peak middle grade 9 sovereign. Furthermore, Saber Mountain Venerable's aura continued to increase. Boom, 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 boom. Numerous sounds were heard. Chapter 1209. Unable to withstand a single blow. Ningyu's expression turned ugly when he sensed Saber Mountain Venerable's aura. Saber Mountain Venerable was injured just now. Moreover, the red patterned sword was damaged, causing Saber Mountain Venerable to be no match for Ningyu. Hence, Ningyu had a high chance of killing him. But now, Saber Mountain Venerable had consumed a pill to raise his aura to a late-stage 9th grade human supreme. Ningyu was not confident that he could defeat Saber Mountain Venerable in this state. Ningyu, you're the reason why things have come to this. Today, I'll enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you with my red patterned sword. Following that, Saber Mountain Venerable tore the void apart and charged at Ningyu. Saber Mountain Venerable knew very well. The effect of the pill he consumed was limited, and he could only last half an hour at the late-stage 9th grade human supreme. Half an hour later, his aura would plummet, and he might even fall to a 9th grade human supreme. In other words, Saber Mountain Venerable had to kill Ningyu within half an hour, then look for Venerable Spiritual Shu and kill him as well. That was the only way he could successfully escape. Otherwise, even if he killed Ningyu, he would still die if Venerable Spiritual Shu came over when his aura was at its lowest. Ding ding ding. Facing such a powerful Saber Mountain Venerable, Ningyu did not choose to resign himself to death. Instead, he took out the red demon sword and fought with Saber Mountain Venerable. The red demon sword and the red patterned sword clashed repeatedly, producing crisp sounds. Fortunately, the red demon sword's rank is very high. The more he fought, the more Ningyu felt fortunate. As the saying went, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. At its peak, the red patterned sword was an upper royal grade flying sword of extremely high quality. Although it was damaged, it could still unleash the power of a middle royal grade flying sword. Saber Mountain Venerable's combat power was almost at its peak with the red patterned sword's aura as a late-stage 9th grade human supreme. In other words, if the red demon sword's quality was not higher than the red patterned sword's, Ningyu would have died a long time ago. How could he have lasted until now? I can't go on like this. I won't be able to last half an hour. Saber Mountain Venerable was aware of his body's condition, but it was not like Ningyu was clueless. Almost all elixirs that could increase one's strength in a short period of time had side effects. This was especially so for pills like Saber Mountain Venerable's, which allowed him to advance from a middle 9th grade human supreme to a late 9th grade human supreme, so the side effects would definitely be huge. Although Ningyu had no idea what elixir the Saber Mountain Venerable had consumed, the fact that the Venerable could maintain his aura for half an hour was already a miracle. However, Ningyu could not hold on for even half an hour. Ding! Saber Mountain Venerable went all out with each attack. Just as Ningyu was slightly stunned, Blade Mountain Venerable seized the opportunity to slash the red demon sword. Hiss! Ningyu could not help but loosen his grip as he felt a tearing pain coming from the webbing between his thumb and forefinger. The red demon sword was naturally snatched away by Saber Mountain Venerable. Ningyu, I've given you many chances, but you didn't cherish them. Today, I'll use your flying sword to send you to hell. Blade Mountain Venerable raised the red demon sword in his hand and slashed it down. Kai, Kai. Wherever the red demon sword passed, the air would avoid it, and the vitality would sizzle. In the blink of an eye, the red demon sword had arrived at Ningyu's neck. Swoosh. However, just as the red demon sword was about to slash Ningyu's neck, the situation suddenly changed. Ah! An extremely terrifying energy shot out from the red demon sword and struck Blade Mountain Venerable's chest. The huge force that came from his chest caused Blade Mountain Venerable to shriek like a pig being slaughtered. At the same time, he quickly retreated. After waving his hand, the red demon sword did not continue its attack. Instead, it hovered above Ningyu's head. What's going on? After stabilizing himself, Blade Mountain Venerable stared at Ningyu and roared. Ningyu shook his slightly swollen wrist and grabbed the red demon sword. He said, I forgot to tell you. Not only is the red demon sword's quality higher than your scarlet patterned swords, but it's also produced a spiritual body. What? A spiritual body? Upon hearing Ningyu's words, Blade Mountain Venerable was not angry, nor did he feel despair. Instead, he was ecstatic. If he could obtain a flying sword that produced a spiritual body, his strength would improve by leaps and bounds. I must obtain the Red Demon Sword. Blade Mountain Venerable secretly made up his mind to obtain the Red Demon Sword no matter what. Even if he could not kill Ningyu today, he would not hesitate. You've really lost your mind. You're no different from a lunatic now. Ningyu rolled his eyes and approached Blade Mountain Venerable step by step with the Red Demon Sword in his hand. After being ambushed by the Red Demon Sword, Blade Mountain Venerable's combat power decreased again. At that moment, Blade Mountain Venerable could no longer suppress Ningyu completely. They were evenly matched, and neither of them could completely suppress the other. I'm going to grind your bones into ashes. Blade Mountain Venerable raised his eyebrows. He did not take Ningyu seriously at all. Instead, he dashed out again and started an intense fight with Ningyu. This time, Blade Mountain Venerable did not gain the upper hand. In fact, he was even being suppressed by Ningyu. If this situation continued, Blade Mountain Venerable would definitely be the one to lose. Damn it, damn it. Saber Mountain Venerable gritted his teeth after every exchange of blows. Although he was angry, there was nothing he could do. The effect of the pill had decreased, and the scarlet patterned sword was already damaged. Given his current state, he could not fight against Ningyu head-on at all. Bang! The fight lasted for a few more minutes. When the 8th minute arrived, Ningyu was quick-witted. He caught Blade Mountain Venerable's flaw and stabbed his sword into the Venerable's right arm. The excruciating pain from his arm forced Blade Mountain Venerable to raise his sword and chop off his right arm. Kai. As it turned out, Blade Mountain Venerable's decision to chop off his right arm was the wisest decision. This was because his right arm was completely corroded and turned into nothingness as soon as it fell to the ground. You actually have such a vicious thing. Blade Mountain Venerable instantly retreated to the edge of the infinite heaven and earth formation and said coldly, "Aren't you afraid that I'll cut the crap? You can't even get out of the infinite heaven and earth formation, and you still want to spread the news?" Ningyu interrupted Blade Mountain Venerable and said in disdain, "Besides, nobody will believe you even if you spread the news." "Oh right." Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and continued, "I won't kill you. I'll only refine you into a puppet. Didn't you despise the cultivation of the puppet that I refined, which is only at the peak of the manifestation realm? If I use you as a material, the puppet that I refine should have the cultivation of the supremacy realm. If I prepare it well, it might even have the cultivation of a high-level human supremacy. You actually want to refine me into a puppet?" Blade Mountain Venerable's pupils shrunk, and the ferocious look on his face became more obvious. A warrior prefers death to humiliation. Chapter 12:10. Harvest. "You're right, but it's a pity there's no prize." Ningyu spoke calmly. Ningyu had no intention of letting a martial artist like Saber Mountain Venerable go. Releasing a tiger back to the mountain? Ningyu was not a fool, and he would not do something so stupid. "I'm going to skin you alive." Saber Mountain Venerable roared and charged straight at Ouyang Yangming. Upon seeing Saber Mountain Venerable charging at him, Ningyu's eyes turned cold. He channeled the raging vitality in his sea of consciousness into the Red Demon Sword. Swoosh! Just as Ningyu was about to fight it out with Saber Mountain Venerable, the latter suddenly turned around and flew far away. Escape! Saber Mountain Venerable knew very well that he had to escape if he wanted to live. He would only die if he stayed any longer. Ultimate heaven and earth formation. However, how could Ningyu give Saber Mountain Venerable a chance to escape? As soon as Saber Mountain Venerable arrived at the edge of the ultimate heaven and earth formation, Ningyu controlled the formation to form a light shield in front of Saber Mountain Venerable. Crack! Faced with the light shield in front of him, Saber Mountain Venerable swung his red patterned sword without any hesitation. For the sake of survival, Saber Mountain Venerable used all his strength in his punch without holding back at all. However, Saber Mountain Venerable was no longer in his peak condition. His red-patterned sword was damaged, and his aura was declining. Although Saber Mountain Venerable managed to shatter the light shield in his current state, he could not completely break it. But at the same time, Ningyu arrived in front of Saber Mountain Venerable with the red demon's sword in his hand. Oh no! Saber Mountain Venerable's face changed when he sensed the red demon's sword charging at him, and he quickly tried to block it. It was evident that it was too late for Saber Mountain Venerable to block it. As his pupils shrunk, the red demon's sword gradually enlarged and pierced through his glabella. Although the spot between Saber Mountain Venerable's eyebrows was penetrated, he did not die right away. He raised his left hand and pointed at Ningyu. His mouth opened slightly as if he wanted to say something, but before he could say anything, his body tilted and he fell to the ground. Thump! At this moment, Saber Mountain Venerable, a peak 8th grade alchemist from the Alchemy Union's middle stage 9th grade supreme alchemist, had died tragically. Hiss! After his death, Saber Mountain Venerable's body weakened rapidly and turned into a pile of powder before long. Shio! As soon as Saber Mountain Venerable's body turned into powder, a cold light emerged and flashed into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Ningyu, the mountains will never change, and the rivers will continue to flow. When I find the next body to possess, it will be the day of your death. Saber Mountain Venerable, who was in soul form, left a harsh sentence before he escaped. You want to leave? Since Ningyu decided to kill Saber Mountain Venerable, he would not hold back at all. In fact, he had a foolproof plan from the beginning. With a thought, Ningyu took out the 10,000 Spirits sacred flag and blocked in front of Saber Mountain Venerable. Saber Mountain Venerable, don't go anywhere. This 10,000 Spirits sacred flag will be your final destination. The corners of Ningyu's lips curled up as he said calmly, there are many souls in the 1,000 Ghosts sacred flag. If you enter, you can even become the leader. You'll be second only to one but above tens of thousands of people. Damn it! Saber Mountain Venerable did not want to be above tens of thousands of people. His thoughts were simple. Escape. He had to escape from this place as soon as possible. He had to escape from the limitless heaven and earth formation and the great Shia kingdom. He had to run as far as he could. Given his current soul form, as long as he found a body to possess, he could recover as soon as possible. Fortunately, I'm a peak 8th grade alchemist with a strong soul power. Otherwise, that devouring power just now would have devoured my soul directly. This time, the one who felt fortunate was not Ningyu, but Saber Mountain Venerable. The fact that he could maintain his soul form had something to do with his strong soul power. Law of space, sapling, don't stay idle. Go and fight Saber Mountain Venerable with the 10,000 Spirits sacred flag. Ningyu did not want to be entangled with Saber Mountain Venerable for too long. After throwing out the 10,000 Spirits sacred flag, he got the sapling and the Law of Space to help. Although the Law of Space and the sapling's combat power could not resist a 9th grade human supreme, they were more than enough to deal with Saber Mountain Venerable in his soul form. Without a host, Saber Mountain Venerable's strength dropped to a freezing point. At this moment, Saber Mountain Venerable could even be killed by a grade 1 human sovereign. What? You actually have the Law of Space, and a sapling. It's the Tree of World. Saber Mountain Venerable widened his mouth in despair when he saw the sapling and the Law of Space charging at him. Be it the Tree of World or the Law of Space, they were things that he could not resist. At the same time, Saber Mountain Venerable was puzzled. Why didn't Ningyu take out the Law of Space and the Tree of World right away? Saber Mountain Venerable was destined to not know about these things. The 10,000 Spirits sacred flag's power was not for show. While Saber Mountain Venerable was slightly stunned, the 10,000 Spirits sacred flag shot out thousands of souls and devoured Saber Mountain Venerable's soul. Buzz, buzz. The Law of Space and the sapling were very dissatisfied when they saw Saber Mountain Venerable's soul being devoured. Ningyu had sent them out to deal with Saber Mountain Venerable. Now that Saber Mountain Venerable was being devoured by the 10,000 Spirits sacred flag, how could they be satisfied? Despite being dissatisfied, the sapling and the Law of Space dared not disobey Ningyu too much. After all, Ningyu's aura and combat power had a qualitative improvement in the infinite heaven and earth formation. To put it simply, they could not fight against Ningyu now. If they wanted to bully someone, they would bully the weak. They dared not bully the strong, nor did they want to bully them. Therefore, the sapling and the law of space returned to the storage ring in dissatisfaction and lost their connection. I'm speechless. Ningyu rolled his eyes. He reached out his right hand and grabbed the 10,000 spirits sacred flag tightly. With this 10,000 ghosts sacred flag, coupled with my peak 3rd grade human supreme stage cultivation and early 8th grade soul power, I can even contend with an ordinary 9th grade human supreme stay. Ningyu was very satisfied after keeping the 10,000 spirits sacred flag. Today's battle result had reached an unprecedented level. Not only did he kill Reverend Great Desolation, but he also got rid of Saber Mountain Venerable. Most importantly, he had obtained a heaven-defying artifact like the 10,000 spirits sacred flag. As long as he kept feeding the 10,000 spirits sacred flag, he believed that its power would be comparable to the Red Demon Sword after some time. Ningyu, hurry up and open the infinite heaven and earth formation. Let me help you. At this moment, a loud voice resounded above the infinite heaven and earth formation. Reverend Spiritual Shu? Ningyu was very familiar with the voice. It was none other than Reverend Spiritual Shu. Looks like Reverend Spiritual Shu has recovered to his peak. Ningyu rolled his eyes and stored the 10,000 spirit sacred flag into his storage ring. He tidied up his clothes before opening the infinite heaven and earth array. Boom. Chapter 12:11. Senior Spirit Void. Senior Spirit Void. Sensing this extremely familiar aura, Ningyu forced himself to calm down. Have you completely recovered to your peak state? Where are Saber Mountain and Great Desolation? Spirit Void didn't immediately reply to Ningyu. Instead, he looked around, trying to find Saber Mountain and Great Desolation. However, he gave up after looking around for a moment. He couldn't even sense Saber Mountain and Great Desolation's auras. Could it be that Saber Mountain and Great Desolation had been killed by Ningyu? Thinking of this, Spirit Void's gaze changed as he looked at Ningyu. After recovering to his peak state, Spirit Void had immediately rushed over. He hadn't asked Pilguzi or the others about what had happened in the endless heaven and earth formation. So he didn't know that Great Desolation had been killed by Ningyu. I was lucky enough to kill them. Ningyu said, I threw all the Shenyang pills and sovereign grade yuan crystals into the altar and used the endless heaven and earth formation to successfully kill Saber Mountain and Great Desolation. This, to be honest, although Ningyu said it casually, it was like a clap of thunder in revered Spirit Shu's ears. Saber Mountain and Great Desolation were rank 9 mortal sovereigns. Furthermore, the Saber Mountain Venerable was a 9th grade middle stage supreme being. Even if Ningyu threw the Emperor grade yuan crystals and Shenyang pills into the altar, even if Ningyu made use of the heaven and earth limitless array, it would still be difficult for him to kill the Great Desolation Venerable and the Saber Mountain Venerable. Swish, swish, swish. Just at this moment, the Dark Emperor and Pilguzi flew over. Ningyu, are you alright? The Dark Emperor immediately asked, where's Saber Mountain? You didn't kill him, did you? Dan Guzi, the Sword of Evil, and the others also looked at Ningyu, wanting to hear Ningyu's reply. Ningyu nodded and answered, I've indeed killed Saber Mountain Venerable. However, Ningyu clearly didn't want to dwell too much on this matter. He turned to Venerable Spirit Shu and said, Venerable Spirit Shu, have you completely recovered to your peak state? I have something I need your help with. What is it? Sage Lingshu asked. To be able to cultivate to the 9th grade intermediate human sovereign realm meant that revered Spirit Shu was not simple. Since Ningyu changed the topic, it meant that Ningyu did not want to be entangled in this matter. Everyone had their own secrets. Moreover, Ningyu was Mu Yunshan's son. Ningyu was powerful, so he should be very pleased. About my father. After a moment's thought, Ningyu said, this isn't the place to talk. Let's find a quiet place to talk. Follow me. Ouyang Lun was very perceptive. As soon as Ningyu finished speaking, he immediately said, other than this secret room, There's another place in the Imperial Palace that's very quiet. I guarantee we won't be disturbed. Lead the way, Ningyu said solemnly. What happened next was very important to Ningyu. Whether his father Ninghai could wake up or not, he couldn't afford to be careless. Rustle. Following Ouyang Lun through the complex courtyard, Ningyu and the others stopped in front of a heavy stone door. Creak. Ouyang Lun took out a golden key and inserted it into the hole in the stone door. Then, the heavy stone door slowly opened. This door is made of 1,000-year-old cold steel. Even a sovereign, in order to show that he was doing his best, Ouyang Lun pointed at the stone door. However, he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Other than him, all the cultivators present were at the utmost exalted level. There was even a grade 9 human sovereign like Sovereign Spiritual Shu. Although the stone door could block the attack of a grade 1 human sovereign, it was completely useless against high-level human sovereigns like Ningyu. It would be a waste of words. You can leave first. Try to send experts to patrol the capital. If there's any suspicious person, inform Dan Guzi immediately. He knows what to do. Leaving behind this sentence, Ningyu and Sovereign Spiritual Shu entered the secret room. Bang! Just as Ningyu and Sovereign Spiritual Shu entered the secret room, the stone door slammed shut. The Dark Emperor and the others were given the cold shoulder. My God, you didn't let me in earlier. I came here for nothing. The Dark Emperor was a little angry, but there was nothing he could do. After thinking about it, the Dark Emperor could only vent his anger on Ouyang Lun. Find the 10 strongest people in the Imperial Palace. I'm going to bring them to patrol the capital. The Dark Emperor was now a new person. The first time he came to the capital, he even annihilated a second-rate family in the capital. At that time, that matter caused a huge uproar, and he was almost caught and roasted alive. Now that he had advanced to the peak of grade 3 human sovereign, he was extremely powerful. He could practically do whatever he wanted in the capital. Naturally, he had to go to Divine Qi. Yes. Ouyang Lun didn't dare to disobey the Dark Emperor. He immediately followed the Dark Emperor's instructions. Dan Guzi, is Ningyu injured? After the Dark Emperor and Ouyang Lun left, the Sword of Evil asked. From the Sword of Evil's point of view, unless Ningyu was injured, there was no reason for him to enter the secret room with Sovereign Spiritual Shu. There was only one possibility. Ningyu didn't want them to worry. That's possible. Venerable Saber Mountain isn't someone to be trifled with. Dan Guzi was also a little worried. Although he was worried, Dan Guzi didn't stay here for long. As a peak grade 8 pill refinement master, Dan Guzi needed to find some medicinal ingredients to refine pills to help him and the Sword of Evil recover quickly. After all, they were different from the Dark Emperor. The Dark Emperor was a purple-gold sky-devouring dog. His recovery ability was heaven-defying. If they wanted to completely recover, they needed the help of pills. At the same time, in the secret room, Ninghai, Sovereign Spiritual Shu looked at the middle-aged man in front of him with an extremely shocked expression. Where did you find your father? Sovereign Spiritual Shu said in a low voice, the protective barrier on the surface of his body is extremely domineering. It's a barrier unique to the Supreme 9 Purities Temple. I found my father in the magical Beast Mountain Range's Beast King Palace. At that time, he was trapped by the experts of the Supreme 9 Purities Temple. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu recounted what had happened to Sovereign Spiritual Shu. Of course, some things that had nothing to do with Ninghai were omitted by Ningyu. Looks like your mother is trapped in the Supreme 9 Purities Temple. Sovereign Spiritual Shu's killing intent surged, making him look very terrifying. Not simple. Just who is Sovereign Spiritual Shu? Sensing the terrifying killing intent coming from Sovereign Spiritual Shu, Ningyu's pupils constricted. Sovereign Spiritual Shu's terrifying killing intent had most likely already completed the 1,000 slaughter. Without killing over 1,000 martial artists, it was impossible to have such a killing intent. Swish. Sovereign Spiritual Shu's killing intent flashed for a moment before quickly returning to normal. I'll think of a way to break the protective barrier on the surface of your father's body. Leave first, Sovereign Spiritual Shu said lightly. Leave. Why do you want me to leave? Ning, you didn't understand. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.